Chapter 448. Director, how do you feel? Jing Cheng approached Baldy and asked in a low voice. I'm all right. Baldy said with a dignified face, looking like a leader. If they didn't have some ability, how could they enter our Rosefinch secondary security office? Do you think anyone can enter our security office? It's high. As high as a 9-story building, Jing Cheng said with a smile. Those hoodlums care about their reputation the most. They come to our school all day to show off, don't they want people to think they're powerful? Today, they did something like this and lost so much face. Let's see if they still have the face to wander on this street in the future. I'm afraid they'll hide far away when they see our school students. Evil never triumphs over good. Even if Fang Yan didn't do this, I would still find a chance to teach them a lesson, Baldy said righteously. The Baldy said with a righteous air, after this incident, if they know their mistakes and can correct themselves, it can be considered a virtuous deed. Although Mr. Fang isn't a teacher now, he's still doing the work of educating people. San Xian stood next to Fang Yan and asked in a low voice, Mr. Fang, I want to ask you a favor, what is it? Fang Yan asked without turning his head. He was focused on drinking the big leaf tea that Baldy gave him. The tea was slightly astringent, just like his current mood. Can you be my teacher? If there's anything I don't understand, can you give me some pointers? San Xian asked nervously. He was very nervous. Sure, Fang Yan said. San Xian didn't expect Fang Yan to agree so easily. After a while, he said excitedly, Mr. Fang, you'll be my teacher from now on. I'll definitely work hard and won't let you down. You're not learning for me, you're learning for yourself, Fang Yan said. You'll be a hoodlum for the rest of your life, it has nothing to do with me, but I'm still looking forward to you becoming more outstanding and using your knowledge in more important places. Got it, San Xian said, feeling enlightened. Fang Yan pointed to the hooligans who were standing at the school gate pretending to welcome guests and said, take them home. Don't come to the school gate to make a fool of yourself again. This is a school, a place for students to learn. If I see them causing trouble here again, I'll hang them on a tree and make them shout these 2 lines at the students. I won't. They won't come again. I won't dare to come again, San Xian promised before leaving with his men. Dong dong dong, someone gently knocked on the window of the security booth. Fang Yan raised his head and looked over. The beautiful girl that he had once met was standing at the window and looking at him with a smile. What's the matter? Fang Yan asked curiously. Are you the school's security guard? The girl asked in a crisp voice. Fang Yan nodded and said, yes. The girl looked at Fang Yan up and down, then pointed at the green security uniform on Baldy and said, then why aren't you wearing a security uniform? You're lying, the girl pretended to be angry and said, how can you be a security guard? You don't look like one at all. How can a security guard look like you? I'm a security guard, Fang Yan explained. They're all standing outside, and only you're sitting in the security booth? You're the security captain. Also, you still haven't answered my question. If you're a security guard, why aren't you wearing a security uniform? Fang Yan was troubled for a while, then said in a small voice, the security uniform is too ugly. Ha ha ha, the girl laughed. I also don't think it looks good. Oh yeah, are you off work? I'll treat you to dinner, okay? Why would you treat me to dinner? Because I like you, the girl said. No need, Fang Yan refused. I already have a date. You really don't give me any face. I don't treat people so easily, the girl said coldly. What's your name? I'm a security guard. Do you know what my name is? I don't know. I clearly told you, the girl said angrily, my name is Su Chi. Do you remember it this time? I'll try my best, Fang Yan said with a serious face. He knew that this girl had a faint affection or a slight curiosity toward him, but he could only push her away. Because he couldn't accommodate too many people around him. I'm a security guard, I'll try my best to remember the name of every student in the school. If I forget, please forgive me. There are too many people, and my memory isn't very good. So boring. The girl turned her head and proudly left. When most of the students had left, Baldy walked in front of Fong Yen and said, "Mr. Fong, it's time to get off work. Why aren't you going back to dinner? I'm treating my colleagues to hot pot. Do you want to join us? We haven't seen each other for a few years, let's have a drink." After a pause, he added, "You can call me director at work, but after work, we'll call each other brothers. I'm a few years older than you, so I'll be your big brother. There's no need to be so distant between brothers." Fong Yen raised his wrist and looked at his watch. He knew that Lu Chaoga might have already sent a car to pick him up, so he put down the teacup in his hand and said, "You guys eat, I won't be going. I'll go back now." Fong Yen and the other two colleagues nodded and walked toward the bus stop not far from the school gate. He had an appointment with Lu Chaoga. Every day after work, a car would stop there to pick him up. Fong Yen walked to the bus stop, and there was indeed a large GMC limousine parked there. Before Fong Yen could walk over, a man in black pushed open the car door and jumped out. "Mr. Fong, we meet again." The man in black took the initiative to greet Fong Yen. "Qi Ning." Fong Yen shook hands with the man in black. "Long time no see." "Mr. Fong, Miss Lu sent me to pick you up." Qi Ning invited Fong Yen to get in the car. Fong Yen got in the car, and Qi Ning followed closely behind. The car was spacious, and the view was excellent. Each seat was an independent airline seat, made of vanilla superior leather, and had excellent support and comfort. At the same time, it also had electric massage heating and 360-degree rotation functions. "Do you want a drink?" Qi Ning opened the wine cabinet in front of him, which was filled with all kinds of expensive drinks. There were a few round grooves on the wine cabinet, and 2 rows of crystal clear, slender, round wine glasses were inverted. "No need. Thank you," Fong Yen said. "What do you want to see?" Qi Ning asked again. The ceiling was installed with a voice-activated TV, which could watch TV programs from more than 100 countries around the world. "I want to rest for a while," Fong Yen said. "Okay. Then I won't disturb you." Qi Ning finally shut up. Like the early spring awakening, urging my heart, can't wait any longer. Empty infatuation, moving people's hearts. Happy times, it won't be biased. Blissful time, it will not be partial, will be divided into 2 hearts. The independent headphone system and the car's powerful surround sound system played an old Cantonese song by a Hong Kong and Taiwanese actress. The voice was magnetic, and the singing was affectionate, making people feel faintly sad. Fong Yen looked at the scenery outside the window, thinking how beautiful it would be if time could be turned back. "Where's Chaoga?" Fong Yen asked. "Miss Lu is in the office, she still has a report to do." Qi Ning answered. "She said she'll rush back to have dinner with you." Fong Yen stopped talking, and his eyes once again looked at the towering buildings outside the window, and the withered old tree branches on both sides of the road. The autumn wind was cool, and the city was full of killing intent. Lu Chaoga wasn't having a meeting in the office, but in a bustling supermarket. She was wearing a black professional suit tailored for her by the world's top clothing brand, Angel. On her hand was a limited edition Queen's watch produced only 99 pieces by Patek Philippe. This watch was popular all over the world because it was worn by the Queen of England. The Hermès scarf around her neck was intellectual and exquisite, and her high heels were black and shiny, spotless. Such an elegant and beautiful woman stood out like a crane in a flock of chickens. She didn't fit in with the aunties around her who were carrying baskets or pushing shopping carts. Many people looked at her with eyes full of doubt or hostility, and some people even said that she was a mistress who came to buy groceries to please her sugar daddy, and so on. Her assistant quietly pushed the shopping cart behind her. In front of them, on the left, and on the right, there was an inconspicuous man forming an iron triangle that surrounded her in the middle, so that they could get close to her in the shortest time possible in the event of an accident. Lu Chaoga didn't care about her surroundings, and she didn't care about the gossip floating in her ears. The sad experience when she was young had long made her heart as strong as the toughest diamond. She held a small piece of paper in her hand, and was carefully studying the scribbled words on it. Scrambled eggs with tomatoes. He doesn't like to eat too sweet food, but scrambled eggs with tomatoes is an exception. Broccoli gravy soup. He drank 2 bowls yesterday, and there's no broccoli at home, so we need to replenish some stock. And fish. He ate some of every kind of fish, so which kind of fish does he like? Then let's just buy some of each kind. Lu Chaoga kept stuffing the shopping cart with the fresh ingredients she had bought, and the shopping cart was already piled up like a small mountain. Baby vegetables. He likes to eat baby vegetables. Buy more vegetables. Lu Chaoga's face was full of seriousness, as if she was doing the most important thing in the world. What she didn't know was that when she bent over to take the vegetables, her full breasts, plump buttocks, and sexy waist that curved like a half-moon exuded a fatal attraction. Women who buy groceries are the most beautiful. Chapter 449. Lu Chaoga didn't go home, so Fang Yan didn't have anyone to talk to. He sat downstairs and drank a cup of green tea, then returned to his room to fill the bathtub with water, and buried his body in the pool. As soon as he entered the state of suspended animation, the voice-activated phone installed next to the bathtub rang. Wow, Fang Yan got out of the pool, picked up the phone, and asked, "Who is it?" "Mr. Fang, there's a guest." The voice of the nanny, Aunt Lu, came over. "Do you want to invite him in?" Fang Yan looked stunned, and the big drops of water on his hair slid down his cheeks. "Since when did I become half the owner of this villa? When Lu Chaoga wasn't here, did I have the right to receive or expel the guest?" Fang Yan was very nervous. He seriously replayed the interaction with Lu Chaoga in his mind again and again. He drank 3 cups of tea, ate 2 meals, and said dozens of words. These shouldn't cause her to get pregnant, or make her mistakenly think that he was pregnant, right? Thinking that he was innocent, Fang Yan couldn't drive away the guest who came to visit. Because, if his relationship with Lu Chaoga wasn't so close, he had to respect her more, and also respect her friends. If Lu Chaoga had become his woman, he could drive away all the guys he didn't like or who were too handsome. Of course, this kind of bullying behavior, which thought that he was nobler than women and loved and protected women, might be scolded as the sand pig doctrine. If there was such a day, Fang Yan didn't mind being a pig. "Invite the guest in for tea," Fang Yan said. "Okay, Mr. Fang." The nanny quickly agreed. After hanging up the phone, Fang Yan got up and took a cold shower. He wiped his hair and body clean, changed into the white satin clothes that he usually practiced martial arts, and went downstairs. Because he had just taken a shower, his face was ruddy, and he was in high spirits. Dressed in a white shirt and black shoes, he had an outstanding temperament. When he walked down the stairs, he gave off the feeling of a graceful and beautiful young man. "Long time no see. Mr. Fang is still as elegant as ever." The guest put down the teacup in his hand and praised. The man was handsome and had a calm demeanor. There was a faint smile on his face that made people feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. His eyes were gentle and deep, making people feel that he was a kind person, but also a scheming person. It was rare to see a scheming and kind person receive such an evaluation. His white shirt was lined with a checkered waistcoat, and his tailored blue suit made him look both businesslike and fashionable. On his wrist was an exquisite watch with a brown crocodile leather belt. Fang Yan couldn't recognize the brand of the watch, but he really liked it. One of the 4 young masters of Flower City, Jiang Zhulu. Fang Yan had been silent for 3 years and had also disappeared for 3 years. His mentality and temperament had undergone earth-shattering changes, but his old friends were also growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The Jiang Zhulu sitting in front of him might still have the name of the 4 young masters of watching, but Fang Yan could be sure that the Jiang Zhulu now was no longer the Jiang Zhulu of the past. While Fang Yan was sizing up Jiang Zhulu was also sizing up Fang Yan. The 2 men's gazes met in the air, and then they smiled knowingly. Fang Yan walked in front of Jiang Zhulu and said, "Eldest young master Jiang, you flatter me." Our Fong family is a small family, and we don't have any temperament or elegance. On the other hand, eldest young Master Jiang is reserved and has an extraordinary temperament. One look and I can tell that you have the demeanor of a great family. Jiang Zhulu laughed heartily and said, I can treat other people's praise as a cool breeze, and it's over after hearing it once. But if Mr. Fong is willing to praise me, then I will accept it. This isn't something that happens often. Of course. Fong Yen nodded. We're mortal enemies, after all. The fact that I'm willing to praise you like this proves that you're a worthy opponent. Jiang Zhulu smiled wryly and said, to borrow a phrase from Mr. Fong, the Jiang family is a small family, mortal enemies are too heavy a burden for us to bear. Fong Yen sat down on the sofa across from Jiang Zhulu, and Aunt Lu brought him a cup of hot tea. Miss Lu said that Fong Yen liked green tea, so she had prepared the best white tea before he came. It cost 10 or 20,000 taels of gold. Only after Aunt Lu left did Fong Yen turn to Jiang Zhulu and ask, You're not here to see me, are you? I am, Jiang Zhulu said with a smile. He took out 2 elegant but fragrant invitation cards from his pocket, got up, and handed them to Fong Yen. He said, I wanted to invite Chaoga alone and pretend that she didn't know you were back in watching, but I think that's a little petty, as if you still can't let go of what happened back then. It's been so long, you've won against Lu Chaoga, and I have another woman, let bygones be bygones. If you don't mind, why don't we go to the wedding? Fong Yen took the invitation card, which said that Mr. Jiang Zhulu and Miss Jiang Shangxin had tied the knot. Jiang Zhulu was going to marry a woman from the Jiang family. The Jiang family and the Jiang family were connected through marriage after all. Could it be that the Jiang family had been very satisfied with the Jiang family's performance over the past few years, or that Jiang Shangxin was very happy with Jiang Zhulio's performance? Congratulations, Fong Yen said in a low voice. If I have time, I'll be there to congratulate you personally. Women who bought groceries weren't necessarily the most beautiful, which meant that men were lying to you. However, beautiful women who bought groceries were simply so sexy that it made people feel hopeless. They stretched out their fair and slender hands that were smeared with various kinds of nail polish and picked out a bundle of vegetables or a few eggplants from the shelves. Then, they frowned slightly and pursed their red lips. The question of whether to choose 2 cucumbers or a box of bitter gourd made them hesitate for a long time. Lu Chaoga didn't have a desire to buy groceries. Most of her items, including her clothes and shoes, were custom-made by her assistant at home when she was slightly free from work. Once the custom-made items were completed, they would be sent over in batches. However, she felt that buying groceries was a very important matter. She had to personally go to the supermarket to pick out the freshest meat and vegetables that were most suited to his taste. Then, she would go home and cook them personally. She would complete all the processes by herself. This way, her happiness would be doubled. Lu Chaoga felt very happy now. This was because she finally had something else to do after work. It wasn't just work, it wasn't just reading books, it wasn't just watching boring television dramas or pretending to have orgasms. She didn't have to deal with complicated interpersonal relationships or think about those troublesome conspiracies and plots. She could be like other women, go to the market to buy a big basket of good vegetables and then go home to cook soup with her bare hands. The most important thing was that there was a man at home for whom she was willing to cook soup. After Lu Chaoga chose several kinds of delicious and precious fish, her assistant, Jing, had to remind her, Boss, the cart can't fit anymore. Should we get them to bring another cart over? Can't fit anymore? Only then did Lu Chaoga retract her thoughts from the small piece of paper in her hand. She turned to look at the shopping cart that was piled up like a mountain and said regretfully, There are still a lot of things that I haven't bought. Boss, we'll just buy the items that you need the most. As for the other minor items, we can make a list and get the housekeeper to buy them or I can buy them myself. And Jing looked at the mechanical watch on her wrist and said, You've been out for 29 minutes. You're about to cross the crisis line. We have to escort you back. Lu Chaoga knew that what Jing said made sense. When had she ever had a comfortable day all these years? The Rubik's Cube was a Pandora's box that she had opened with her own hands, attracting batches and batches of demons and devils to surround and covet her. Time and time again, killing intent after killing intent, it was truly exhausting. Lu Chaoga nodded and said, "Then let's go back." Although she looked cold, she was a boss who was very willing to think for her subordinates. If there was a crisis, it would be the protectors around her who would be the first to rush out and fight with their lives. They were the most dangerous targets. A man in black pushed the shopping cart over to pay the bill. Lu Chaoga and Enjing walked toward the surface parking lot under the escort of two men in black. The underground parking lot was too dark and desolate. There were too few people and too many surveillance blind spots. It was easy for all kinds of accidents to happen. If the car was parked on the surface, with the huge flow of people in the shopping mall, it would not be easy for those peeping behind the scenes to do anything even if they wanted to. They also did not dare to brazenly expose themselves in front of the public. The engine of the custom-made bulletproof Mercedes-Benz was on. The driver in the driver's seat could start the car at any time to evacuate or drive the car anywhere to pick someone up. Sitting in the passenger seat was a middle-aged man who wore glasses and looked like a bookworm. His nickname was Bookworm. He constantly patrolled the area to prevent any suspicious people from approaching. A man in black opened the car door and Lu Chaoga bent down to get into the car. Enjing sat beside Lu Chaoga as the car door closed. The Mercedes-Benz slowly started up as another escort car followed behind it. The car drove out of the bustling shopping mall and onto the main road, heading for the flower district where Lu Chaoga's villa was. Enjing felt an itch on her head. She reached out and grabbed a black bug. "Why is there a fly here?" Enjing exclaimed. Kacha, the fly's body suddenly exploded. White light blazed as it turned into a palm-sized saucer-shaped communication device. "This is a genetic bomb. Once it explodes, none of you will be left." A man's calm and powerful voice sounded from the communication device. He didn't remove his original voice and use a mechanical voice, proving that he didn't care if these people knew his true identity. "Then, congratulations. You've been kidnapped." Chapter 450. The development of technology had pushed the technology of crime forward. In the past, people had to slash with knives, stab with swords, strangle with ropes, and poison in drinks. There had to be something in contact with the human body. Right now, the criminals were thousands of miles away, and it was possible for them to carry out a large-scale massacre. All Enjing did was grab a tiny black fly from her hair, but the fly instantly exploded, turning into a genetic bomb that could communicate and explode. It was even more powerful than Monkey Sun's 72 transformations. Lu Chaoga had been busy with the research of the Rubik's Cube in recent years, so it was impossible for her not to know the notoriety of the genetic bomb. Enjing was originally an outstanding graduate of a famous university. After interviewing for a job at Chaoyan Technology, she was placed in an important position by Lu Chaoga and promoted to a business assistant. Over the years, she had followed Lu Chaoga and seen too many conspiracies and hunts. She also had a deep understanding of the genetic bomb. As for the driver and the bookworm in the passenger seat, they were all carefully selected security personnel by the Qin family. Their understanding of the genetic bomb was deeper than anyone present. Hearing the man on the communicator say that it was a genetic bomb, everyone was extremely shocked but did not panic. The driver continued driving calmly, but a thin layer of sweat appeared on his forehead. The bookworm took off his glasses and wiped them with a silk handkerchief. When he put them back on, his eyes that looked casual earlier were now emitting a frightening and fierce light. There was an alarm system on his glasses. If there was a crisis in the car, he could send a message through the glasses in time. At the very least, the guard car following behind didn't know if anything had happened here for the time being. If they could receive the alarm, they could take timely action or report the kidnapping to a higher-level figure. Unfortunately, his attempt failed. The alarm could not be sent out, and the car they were in was shut down by the holographic screen. They had lost contact with the satellite in the sky. Everything was under the enemy's control. Bookworm, are you feeling very disappointed now? A man's pleasant but disgusting voice came from the communicator. The king of individual soldiers who wreaked havoc in South Africa, the legendary figure who single-handedly wiped out half of Chief Akamsi's army, after returning to Huaxia and being taken in as a servant by the Qin family, her days became more and more comfortable, and she became more and more careless. Don't you feel powerless and aggrieved that you can't do anything? Don't waste your time. The gadget in your hands is called King Kong. It has a shielding program installed in it that can block all signals and wavebands in the car. Don't try to dismantle it, because if you move, I will immediately detonate the bomb. Needless to say, the button to detonate the bomb was pressed under my thumb. As long as I use the slightest bit of force, or if I'm not careful, you'll be incinerated into thin air by that beautiful green liquid. Not only you, but also the car you're sitting in. Nothing will be left. After a pause, the man continued, "Oh, I almost forgot to tell you that your every move is under my watch. Allow me to introduce myself. I am a sovereign. Don't try to resist me, because I really like killing people." Bookworm sat quietly in the front row, not saying a word, not accepting the mockery and provocation of the sovereign. He was not surprised that those people knew his past information so clearly. With the expansion of the influence of the Rubik's Cube and the increasing importance of Lu Chaoga, he was sent to replace Qi Ning as Lu Chaoga's security captain, directly responsible for Lu Chaoga's personal safety. In these 2 years, he had defeated countless snipers. In such a long confrontation, if they wanted to understand a person, they could even find out how many times he had peed on the bed when he was a child and how old he was when he was weaned. He had such an ability. "What do you want?" Lu Chaoga asked aloud. "The goddess. We want the goddess. We only want the goddess." The man said with a smile, "Miss Lu, don't get me wrong. The goddess we are talking about is not you, perhaps you don't know, but our organization has constructed a plan to capture the goddess. We will use any means and pay any price to get the goddess from your hands. Yes, the goddess is the Rubik's Cube. This does not mean that we deny Miss Lu's appearance. Miss Lu is a 1 in a million beauty, a rare goddess. Unfortunately, I don't like women. No matter how beautiful a woman is standing naked in front of me, I can't have the slightest interest. We are more interested in the Rubik's Cube goddess. As long as we have her, our children and grandchildren will not have to worry about food and clothing, and can even become the master of this world. Miss Lu, I don't think you will let us down, right?" "No." Lu Chaoga's voice was crisp. What a woman with character. "If I were a man, I think I would fall in love with you," the man's voice came from the intercom. "But, what are you going to do? Your life is in my hands now. As long as I use a little force, such a beautiful body will be blown to pieces. How regrettable is that? Even if I am not a man, I will feel sorry for those who are secretly fascinated by you. The Rubik's Cube goddess, this is the code name they gave you. You must like it very much, right?" Lu Chaoga was not interested in continuing to talk to the Lord God, but said to Bookworm in the front passenger seat, "I leave this matter to you. Everyone should do what they are best at," and now they encountered the field that Bookworm was best at. What she had to do was to trust Bookworm and wait quietly. "Do as they ask," Bookworm said. He took King Kong from Njing's hands. At least he had no way to get rid of this little thing. If he could, he really wanted to press down the window and throw it out. However, he knew it was impossible. This was because the moment he pressed the window, King Kong might have already exploded. Besides, who knew if those people had any tricks up their sleeves? The enemy could take risks, but he couldn't drag Lu Chaoga to take risks with him. He knew how important Lu Chaoga was to the Qin family now, and how much the elders of the Qin family valued her. If it wasn't for the talented Miss Qin supporting them, those proud figures of the Qin family would probably be suppressed by her. It was not a pleasant thing that the person in charge of the subsidiary company was too capable. No king would use a general who was difficult to control. Fortunately, at least for now, the two sides were still in the honeymoon period. How to get rid of King Kong in his hands was really a tricky problem. Since Miss Lu doesn't want to talk to me, then, Bookworm, let's communicate directly. Do as I say, and obey every word unconditionally. The voice of the Lord God became cold and determined. Lu Chaoga's attitude completely irritated him. The first thing you have to do is to get rid of the escort car behind you in a minute or something. I don't care what reason you use, but your every move is seen by me. If they do anything suspicious, I will put the debt on your head. Don't forget, I like to kill people, and I like to kill beautiful women even more. They exist in this world, it's really annoying. The bookworm didn't waste this precious time and motioned the driver to turn the car to the fast lane on the innermost side of the main road. Slow down the speed, and then turn left quickly when the red light is about to shine. When the guard car behind wanted to follow, a large number of cars had already rushed over from the left and right sides, blocking them in place and making them unable to move. Beautiful. The Lord God praised. The second thing is to drive into the Seaview lane and go in the direction of the Seaview platform. Without the bookworm's explanation, the driver had driven into the Seaview lane. The Seaview lane was the main lane to enter the seaport. There was a lot of traffic. A car squeezed in the middle would soon be surrounded by a long line of cars. The front and back were impenetrable, and it was difficult to escape. The guard team lost contact, and there was no external force to rely on. The car was trapped in the middle of the traffic, and the hope of self-help was slim. Now the situation was even more critical. The sweat on the driver's forehead was getting denser, and the blood in the bookworm's eyes was getting stronger and stronger. His eyes were looking at the surrounding environment sharply, looking for possible opportunities to break through. And Jing was just like her name. She sat beside Lu Xiaoga as usual. She didn't speak or scream. She was no different from usual. But her right hand kept waving a button under the seat. It was the alarm device of the car's security system. Even if she knew that the chance of success was very small, but what if the headquarters received their message? Lu Xiaoga was very comfortable. First, she lay on the seat and listened to the light music in the car for a while. Finally, she was a little bored, and simply pulled out a fashion magazine from the back of the seat to read to kill time. She had fantasized about such a result countless times. She knew that there would be such a day after all. As long as the Rubik's Cube was in her hands, those people would not give up. She could escape a hunt, she could escape 10 traps, but could she escape 100 ambushes? Whether she was there or not, the Rubik's Cube must be there. Therefore, she simply refused the Lord God's request to take away the Rubik's Cube. There was no room for discussion or negotiation in this matter. She said that she would give a huge Chaoyan empire to Fang Yan. This was her promise to him. Who said that a woman could not promise a man? Chapter 451. Aren't you afraid? The Lord noticed Lu Xiaoga's ease and asked doubtfully. Lu Xiaoga's eyes are still on the gorgeous style of clothes in the magazine, thinking that she should order a batch of autumn clothes. Although she has enough clothes, it's best not to repeat them. Otherwise, men will be tired of looking at them. Hearing that the Lord is still asking questions, she answered perfunctorily and said, "Afraid. Aren't you afraid I'll kill you?" The Lord is very curious about women. The more you don't understand a woman, the more curious you are. Afraid. I don't see you afraid. Lu Xiaoga finally looked up and said in a sarcastic voice, "I've prepared for the worst. Now that moment has not come. In the battlefield of feelings, there is no fairness, only who loves who more." Lu Xiaoga did not know what kind of feelings he had for Fang Yan. Was it familial love, adoration, attachment, or perhaps attachment? She has never thought about this topic. Because for her, it doesn't matter. She lost her parents when she was a child and was an orphan living in the enemy's home. Her heart has long been hard, and her blood has long been cold. Later, the miraculous appearance of her aunt gave her a clear understanding of her family. Where there are relatives, there is home. Although her aunt was burned to such a horrible appearance, she is also her most precious and only relative. It is for this reason that she knows that her aunt is doing something crazy and does not object to it. She understands her aunt and understands how desperate and crazy it is to live and die. However, her aunt, who loves her the most, is also dead. If no one in the world loves you, then find someone you love. Fortunately, there is Fang Yan. The man who was betrayed by her, the man who blocked the knife for her, the man who pulled her out of the mud again and again. If there is still light in the world, it is the place where Fang Yan is. If there is warmth in the world, it is when they watch the fireworks under the same sky. Lu Chaoga's life was complicated yet simple, pitiful yet happy. The 3 years of rapid development of the Rubik's Cube were also the most dangerous years for Lu Chaoga's personal safety. Countless conspiracies, countless traps, countless fire pits, countless assassinations, countless poisons and drinks, but she had survived them all. She did not complain, and no one would listen to her. She had never thought of retreating. She had nowhere to retreat to. She had escaped too many times. She was lucky. This time, she did not avoid it. That was her fate. Sometimes, luck and fate were just a step apart. The Lord was silent for a long time. When everyone thought that he had disappeared or was busy with other things, his voice came again. He sighed and said, "You are the most amazing woman I have ever seen. I don't want to say thank you." When faced with a hostage who had kidnapped you, even if he praised you as the most beautiful woman in the world, you wouldn't have any good impression of him. Lu Chaoga's eyes had turned to the magazine again, and she had lost interest in talking to the Lord God. She just couldn't understand, how could there be such a long-winded kidnapper? Didn't he understand that talking too much leads to mistakes? The more you talk, the easier it is to expose your own information and give the opponent a chance to take advantage of it? Mr. Bookworm, oh, perhaps it is more appropriate to call you Mr. Tiger? Now, I need you to do a very important thing. You don't mind self-dormancy, do you? The voice of the Lord was teasing. You know, your existence is a threat to us. We don't want to go to the devil's cave, you are still alive, and several young men can't get close. Thank you for your attention to me. The bookworm said coldly. He pressed the watch button on his wrist, and a thin needle popped out of the watch's steel hole. He pricked the acupuncture point on his neck with the thin needle, and his body immediately collapsed on the seat. Thank you for your cooperation. The Lord God said to the unconscious bookworm. Turn left at the first intersection ahead, there is a big truck parked on the roadside, drive your car along the iron plate into the truck. The Lord God's words were obviously directed at the driver. Because now only the driver can execute his order. Lu Chaoga did not speak, and the driver would not refute. He turned the steering wheel smoothly, and then drove their Mercedes-Benz through the iron plate into the truck compartment. Clang, the truck door closed automatically, and the compartment was as dark as night. The dashboard of the Mercedes-Benz flashed a faint green light, and the faces of several people in the car were as gloomy as ghosts. They felt that the truck began to move, driving to a distance that no one knew. Devil's Cave? What is that place? You don't hit a smiling face. Jiang Zhulu has been smiling, and his posture is very low, so that Fang Yan can't reach out and hit him in the face. Fang Yan doesn't like Jiang Zhulu, and he doesn't like his father Qiang Long Tan even more. Even quite disgusted. The father and son of the Jiang family are both hypocrites. Just because there is no evidence for something doesn't mean it didn't happen. When her aunt died, Lu Chaoga was heartbroken, and the courage to survive was to revenge. She wants to repay the pain the Jiang family gave her tenfold, 100-fold. After 3 years, Jiang Zhulu came to invite Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga to attend his wedding, pretending that nothing had happened. What kind of drama was he putting up? Hearing that Fang Yan is willing to make time to attend his wedding, Jiang Zhulu was very happy, and said with a smile, "Mr. Fang, your name shook watching 3 years ago, and even after 3 years, there are still all kinds of legends about you in Huaqing. If I can invite Mr. Fang to attend my wedding, it will definitely add a lot of color to the wedding banquet." When the time comes, I will definitely toast to you a few more times. Fang Yan shook his head, and said, I don't drink. I've already quit. Oh. Jiang Zhuliu's smile gradually disappeared, and he said with a regretful expression, I've heard a little about your father. He is a true hero. The dead are long gone, and the living are like this. I'm sure uncle has another kind of fun in heaven. Don't be too sad while you're alive. Fang Yan looked at Jiang Zhuliu, and said, what kind of fun is there in heaven? Why don't I send you up there to take a look? Jiang Zhuliu's expression was very awkward. Do you know how to talk? How can I continue this kind of conversation? The human world is fine, why do I have to go to heaven? If you want to go up there and accompany your father. I'm just joking, don't mind me, Fang Yan said with a smile. We're friends, why would I send you up there? I'll send anyone who sends my father up there. You didn't harm my father, did you? Why would I do such a thing? Jiang Zhuliu said with a face full of anger. Don't harm your family. What grudge do I have with you? Why would I do such a thing to your family? I also hope that Mr. Fang can find the real culprit and avenge your father. At that time, I will naturally accompany Mr. Fang and get drunk. Thank you, Fang Yan said. I don't drink. At that time, I'm sure Mr. Fang will be willing to drink to his heart's content. Jiang Zhuliu was about to leave when Qining suddenly barged in through the door. His face was ashen, and it was obvious that something big had happened. What happened? Fang Yan had a bad feeling in his heart. Qining quickly walked in front of Fang Yan and said, I just received a call from the guard team. They lost contact with Miss Lu's car. When? 3 minutes ago. Tell me in detail, Fang Yan said coldly, suppressing the anger in his heart. I lied to you, Miss Lu didn't stay at the research institute for a meeting, but went to the mall with her assistant to buy groceries, Qining hurriedly explained, and reported the whole process of Lu Chaoga's disappearance to Fang Yan in detail. Miss Lu finished her shopping, and the convoy began to return. While waiting for the traffic light at the intersection of Huacheng, the car that Miss Lu was in suddenly turned left, and the guard team behind was blocked by other cars, unable to follow closely. After this sudden incident, the guard team immediately contacted the car that Miss Lu was in. However, Miss Lu's phone couldn't be connected, and Assistant N's phone couldn't be connected either. There were 7 other communication tools between the 2 cars, including satellite communication equipment and wave transmission equipment. All communication methods were blocked. While Qining was reporting the situation, Fang Yan had already opened the map on his phone and started to search for the area where Lu Chaoga went missing. His eyes were glued to the map, as if he wanted to drag Lu Chaoga out of the map. They suspect that Miss Lu was kidnapped, and are currently searching the area where the car went missing, Qining said. The guard team reported back the situation and awaited further instructions. Damn it. Fang Yan grabbed the teacup in front of him and threw it at the opposite side. Jiang Zhuliu, who was holding the teacup and listening to the conversation between Fang Yan and Qining, couldn't dodge in time, and his forehead was hit by the flying teacup. Smack! The teacup smashed onto Jiang Zhuliu's forehead, causing tea to splatter everywhere. A few tea leaves stuck to his face in an unsightly manner. The refined and elegant Huacheng's 4 young masters looked miserable and battered at this moment. Even a clay Buddha had some vitality, and Jiang Zhuliu's ability to maintain his vitality was extremely good. However, when faced with the humiliation of having tea splattered on his face, it was hard for him to bear. Jiang Zhuliu was furious. He jumped up from the sofa, wiped the tea off his face, and shouted at Fang Yan, "Are you crazy? What are you doing? I'm also very worried about Lu Chaoga's disappearance, but what does this have to do with me? What right do you have to throw a teacup at someone?" After flying into a rage, Fang Yan calmed down a little. He looked at Jiang Zhuliu guiltily and said, "I'm sorry, I was too angry." Chapter 452. You're angry? Shouldn't I be? Can I hit someone just because I'm angry? Can I hit you just because I'm angry? Jiang Zhulu didn't believe Fang Yan's bullshit about hitting someone because he couldn't control his emotions. This guy didn't play by the rules, and he had been beaten up by him several times 3 years ago. Every little move he made had a deep meaning behind it, and he didn't realize it until the truth was revealed. Now, he was hitting him with a glass. What was he trying to do with Lu Chaoga's disappearance? Jiang Zhulio's hair stood on end, and a chill ran down his spine. His extreme wariness of Fang Yan made his anger disappear, and he calmed down as well. Fang Yan sat back down on the sofa and looked at Jiang Zhulu like a lone vulture. I went back to watching yesterday, and you came to give us an invitation today, and then Chaoga was kidnapped. Jiang Zhulu, how can I believe that you have nothing to do with this? It's a coincidence. It's all a coincidence, Jiang Zhulu said firmly. Jiang Zhulu said firmly. He didn't want to have anything to do with the kidnappers. I feel bad that something like this happened in Chaoga. Chaoga is your lover, and she's also my family. I can promise you that I have nothing to do with this. If I had decided to kidnap Lu Chaoga today, would I have come to give you an invitation and let you humiliate me like this? That's hard to say. Fang Yan stared at Jiang Zhulu as if there was a flower on his face. You and your father conspired to kill Chaoga's parents, but didn't you pretend to adopt her for so many years? Fang Yan, don't slander me. You need evidence. What evidence do you have to prove that we killed Lu Chaoga's parents? What evidence do you have to prove that I was the mastermind behind Lu Chaoga's kidnapping? If you keep trying to frame me, I don't mind suing you for slander. You won't get a lawyer. Fang Yan said calmly, because you know very well in your heart that if you sue me because of this matter, it will only cause a big uproar. Moreover, it will confirm the fact that you are the murderers of Lu Chaoga's parents. You will only desperately want to disassociate yourself from this matter. Jiang Zhulu glared fiercely at Fang Yan and said, so, you saw that it was difficult for us to defend ourselves, so you wanted to pour this basin of dirty water on us, father and son? I won't wrongly accuse a good person, Fang Yan said, but I won't let any bad person go either. If you're the bad guy, we can only fight to the death. It seems like we can never be friends, Jiang Zhulu said as he looked at Fang Yan. I don't befriend people with evil intentions. I hope you're right. Jiang Zhulu sneered. He walked in front of Fang Yan, picked up the 2 invitations on the coffee table, and turned to walk towards the door. Qin Ying's figure flashed and blocked in front of Jiang Zhulu. This was Lu Chaoga's house. When Lu Chaoga wasn't here, Fang Yan was the owner of this house. The owner didn't say anything, so how could he be allowed to leave as he pleased? Moreover, Fang Yan said that the kidnapping incident was related to Jiang Zhulu. Was it related or not? This matter had to be cleared up before he could leave. Jiang Zhulu looked at Fang Yan and sneered, saying, what? You want to keep me here? If the owner wants to keep me here, then I'll really be an unwelcome guest and not leave. Fang Yan looked at Qin Ying and said, tomorrow is someone else's big day, how can we detain the groom? Let him go. We still have to go to his wedding tomorrow. Qin Ying was full of doubts, but still listened to the order and moved to the side. Although I know you'll definitely refuse, I still have to say this, I'm also very worried about Lu Chaoga's disappearance. If there's a need, you can give me a call. My Jiang family also has some connections, so we'll definitely do our best to search for Lu Chaoga's whereabouts. Jiang Zhulio's voice was loud and clear as he said, Lu Chaoga has misunderstood my Jiang family, but my Jiang family will always treat her as a family member. Why should I refuse? Fang Yan asked. Go on, do your best to find her. When you find Lu Chaoga, I'll treat you to a drink. Jiang Zhulu took a deep look at Fang Yan and strode out of the villa. At the entrance of the villa's courtyard, a champagne-colored Bentley was parked. An old man in a well-ironed suit stood beside the car. When he saw Jiang Zhulu coming, he immediately opened the door of the KAI in a gentlemanly manner. Jiang Zhulu got into the back seat of the car, and the old man gently closed the door. After the old man sat down in the front passenger seat, the Bentley slowly drove out of the neighborhood. Young master, you've been wronged, the old man said softly as he handed over a white and soft silk handkerchief. When Jiang Zhulu went in, he had an extraordinary bearing, but when he came out, he was extremely angry. It was obvious that the conversation inside wasn't very friendly. Jiang Zhulu took the silk handkerchief and wiped the water stains on his face and clothes. He said with a light smile, Fang Yan is a mad dog. He bites anyone he sees, and he changes his attitude faster than flipping a page. He's just like that, and I've known him for a long time. He bears a grudge against you, young master, the old man said. Hatred is like a seed. The longer it lasts, the higher it grows. In the end, it will become a towering tree. He never thought of becoming friends with young master, so his words and actions are unrestrained. This kind of person is the most taboo, because no one knows when he will turn hostile. And when he turns hostile, he won't show any mercy. Let him be, Jiang Zhulu said. However, there's a piece of news that we should pay attention to. Lu Chaoga has disappeared. It's very likely that she's been kidnapped. Young master, do you have a suspect? No country can do without 3 types of people. Those with guns, those with pens, and there's also an idiot. Jiang Zhulu glanced at the Lu family's small building that was gradually getting further away and said, I really want to know which idiot is helping the people get rid of a pest. You'll find out eventually, the old man comforted him. When the time comes, young master will treat him to a drink. Longtu Clubhouse. This was a luxurious business clubhouse that Longtu Group had invested nearly 1 billion to build. It was also named after Longtu Group and was one of the most private and high-end gathering places in Huaqing. Longtu Group was named after the names of its 2 founders, Qiang Longtan and Lu Mingtu. Lu Mingtu died young, and the Tu in Longtu Group's name had been missing. However, Qiang Longtan was extremely capable and turned the tide. He single-handedly propped up the company and led Longtu Group to carve out a big place in the new energy field. Of course, their good days ended 2 years ago. That was because another energy company had risen rapidly and lit up the entire sky like a comet. Chaoyan Technology, the energy technology company with the logo of 2 small red flames burning above and below, appeared out of nowhere. As soon as they appeared, they charged forward with an unstoppable, invincible stance, sweeping away everything in their way. They were not only a nightmare for Longtu Group, but also a nightmare for energy companies in Huaxia and even the entire world. Under the suppression of Chaoyan Technology, although Longtu Group was not as powerful as it used to be, it still used Qiang Longtan's magical operating methods and a large amount of financial support to wantonly merge with Shou Group, firmly occupying the 2nd place in the energy field in Huaqing. The 1st and 2nd place were natural enemies. The 2 companies fought fiercely against each other repeatedly. The chairman of Longtu Group, Qiang Longtan, had publicly announced through the media that if possible, he was very willing to expand the scope of cooperation with Chaoyan Technology. However, the strong female leader of Chaoyan Technology, Lu Chaoga, who was deified by countless media outlets, sharply rejected him. We can talk about acquisition, but not cooperation. Jiang Zhulu went to send invitations to Lu Chaoga and Fang Yan, inviting them to attend his wedding. This was also a show of goodwill. Lu Chaoga was pressing hard, and the Jiang family's days were not going to be easy. That woman was full of murderous intent. She was determined to take down Longtu Group. Unfortunately, it was unknown whether Lu Chaoga's luck was too bad, or whether Jiang Zhulu did not look at the almanac when he left the house. He and Fang Yan were chatting happily when news of Lu Chaoga's kidnapping came. This way, the Jiang father and son's goodwill intentions were thrown into a frozen lake. Sending invitations on the day Lu Chaoga was kidnapped, who would believe that you had nothing to do with this matter? Today, Longtu Club was not open to the outside world, because the son of Longtu Group's big boss, Jiang Zhulu, was going to hold his wedding here. The seats were full, and luxury cars were everywhere. As one of the 4 oldest families in Huaqing, they naturally had a deep foundation and a huge network of connections. High-ranking political officials, wealthy tycoons, celebrities, and celebrities all shone brightly, illuminating the night sky of Huacheng. Longtu Club was decorated with lanterns and streamers, and the largest hall, Phoenix Coming Morning Hall, was a sea of fresh flowers. Hundreds of thousands of fresh flowers formed a beautiful rural landscape. The closer they were to the front of the stage, the higher their status and seniority. Some of the young people who came to support were arranged slightly further back. For the wedding of Jiang Zhulu, one of the 4 young masters of Huacheng, other than Mei Xue, who never appeared in public, Lan Shanggu and Lu Shu came to support. They sat together with a few influential young masters in the circle, chatting and laughing, so they did not feel bored. Lan Shanggu looked rough and straightforward, but it was easy for him to get along with those young masters. Ever since Lu Shu's face was disfigured, he had become a monster in Huacheng. He spoke in a strange way, and his methods were cruel and ruthless. He gave off a gloomy aura that kept people away. Lan Shanggu chatted and laughed with everyone for a while. Then, he tilted his body slightly and approached Lu Shu, who was drinking his tea in silence. He said, "If the Jiang family pushed Jiang Shangxin out as bait 3 years ago, then has Jiang Zhulu satisfied the Jiang family or Jiang Shangxin? How did this happen?" Chapter 453. You have a close relationship with the Jiang clan. Is there a story behind this? Lan Shanggu looked at the willow tree and asked curiously. The Lu clan and the Jiang clan were related by marriage. Lu Shu and Jiang Zhulu were cousins. However, because of the Rubik's Cube, the little goblin that was hard to control, the 2 clans often fought against each other. They knew that if they didn't expose the truth, they could still be relatives. Therefore, even though Lu Shu was disfigured and the Jiang clan suffered heavy losses during the Rubik's Cube fight, the 2 clans were still on good terms, as if nothing had happened. If the Lu family had given the whereabouts of the real Rubik's Cube to the Jiang family or directly used Lu Zhaoga's aunt to negotiate terms with the Jiang family, there wouldn't have been a life-and-death struggle between the 2 families. The reason why Lu Zhaoga and her aunt could persist until the end, besides the appearance of Fang Yan, was that they had taken advantage of the greed of the 2 beasts, the Jiang family and the Lu family. How could Lu Zhaoga and his aunt fight against a giant like the Lu family with only their strength? Without the Lu clan support, aunt would have died long ago. Lu Zhaoga would have had no choice but to marry someone else. Of course, if it weren't for the Jiang family, the Lu family would have used all means possible to force Lu Zhaoga and her aunt to hand over the Rubik's Cube. Those 2 women were trying to walk a tightrope, and they actually succeeded in the end. In the end, the truth came out. The Lu clan knew they were tricked and the Jiang clan knew they were tricked. No matter how warm and natural their smiles were when they shook hands, how could there be no grudge between them? Lu Shu didn't like Jiang Zhulu. Outstanding people probably didn't like equally outstanding people. Hearing Lan Shanggu talking about the secret history of the wedding, the corner of his mouth curled up into a mocking smile. He sneered and said, "Jiang Zhulu can't deal with Fang Yan, but can't he handle a woman?" Lan Shanggu gave Lu Shu a thumbs up and said, "That's a fair comment." However, this woman was no ordinary woman. She was a woman from the Jiang family. Who in Huacheng didn't know about the relationship between the Jiang family and Fang Yan? Although we brothers weren't there were hundreds of people who witnessed the big drama that happened in Yanjing City. For a period of time, calluses grew in my ears. What Fang Yan forced Jiang Junling to abdicate, what Jiang Junling defeated the grassroots hero, and what they were fighting over a woman. What kind of rumors didn't I hear? You've heard a lot, haven't you? Lan Shanggu lowered his voice and whispered, "Jiang Zhulu has married a woman from the general family. Is he preparing to fight to the death with Fang Yan? What does the Jiang clan have to do with us?" Lan Shanggu smiled bitterly and said, "If it was in the past, we could drink red wine and watch the show. The more intense the fight, the better. But now, we can't do that. Both of us are partners of Chaoyan Technology and distributors of Chaoyan's products. Who does Chaoyan Technology belong to? On the surface, it seems to belong to Lu Chaoga, but in reality, it belongs to the Qin family. But what is the relationship between Qin families Lu Chaoga and Fang Yan? In the end, their surname is Fang. Previously, we expected that the new energy products from the Rubik's Cube would be popular, but no one expected it to be to this extent, right? Let's talk about the past 2 years. After the Lan and Lu family became the agents of Little Flame's products, how many percentage points did the family's annual profit increase? 300%, and that's only because we are the agents. Lu Chaoga, that woman, has controlled our profits too tightly. The company sets the price and doesn't give us the right to set the price freely. Otherwise, how much profit could we achieve? Lan Shanggu's expression was both proud and helpless. He smiled bitterly and said, "At first, we only wanted to establish a relationship with the Rubik's Cube and earn some quick money for the family. Now, we have all become the puppets of the Rubik's Cube. We can go up but not down, we can charge but not retreat. After tasting the benefits of the Rubik's Cube, if I tell you to transfer the agent rights to someone else, will the Lu family agree? Will you fight with your life? Anyway, I won't do it." How many years has it been since Chao Yan was established? It has only been a little more than 3 years since its establishment, and it has already developed to this point. In the future, as the energy crisis becomes more and more serious, the power that the Rubik's Cube can display will become more and more powerful. That will be the real harvest season for us. It would be a pity to withdraw now. Lu Shu gently shook the goblet in his hand, his posture elegant and calm. If it was 3 years ago, his performance could make countless women fall head over heels for him. Back then, the Casanova of Huacheng was a popular man among thousands of young girls and young women. Now that his face was disfigured, he had become repulsive. No one paid attention to him anymore. Some women who used to be close to him accidentally glanced at him and immediately showed a reserved smile. They picked up the goblet in front of them and made a gesture to invite him to drink. Before swallowing a mouthful of wine, they had already turned around, no longer with the seductive eyes that said, "I'm free tonight." Some women said that they liked his talent and inner qualities, but it was all nonsense. In the end, this was a world of face. You want to play with the Rubik's Cube, but the Rubik's Cube may not be willing to play with you. How did we sign the agency contract? Every 3 years. Now is the 2nd year. After next year, Zhao Yan wants to change agents. What can you and I do? Lu Shu said with a face full of disdain. Lan Shanggu laughed and said, "So, aren't I hugging Fang Yan's thigh? If he is willing to help us, Lu Chaoga won't even say a no." You didn't see the look in Lu Chaoga's eyes when she mentioned Fang Yan. "Io, what's so good about that kid? Whether he's good or not, I don't know." Lu Shu slowly sipped the red wine in his glass, maintaining his unique pace, which seemed a little out of place with the surrounding environment. But he definitely won't be bad to Lu Chaoga. A woman will fall in love with a bad man, but she will never fall in love with a man who treats her badly. Hit the nail on the head. As expected of the Casanova. Lan Shanggu praised. Lu Shu's sharp eyes swept over, and there was an unsuppressible hostility in those eyes. Lan Shanggu knew he said the wrong thing, and didn't take it to heart. Right now, Lu Shu couldn't do anything to him, just like how he couldn't do anything to Lu Shu. They were 2 dogs, Chao Yan Technology's dogs, Lu Chaoga's dogs, or rather, Fang Yan's dogs. They found 3 agents to maintain a balanced development of the 3 legs of a tripod. They needed the Jiang family and the Lu family to fight and bite each other. This way, it would be easier for them to control, and it would be easier for them to make the market bigger and better. Of course, even if the Jiang family and the Lu family joined forces to fight with Chao Yan Technology for the right to speak, it wouldn't have any pressure on them. Because they still had the Qin family's huge sales system to help them sell. No matter what, the Qin family wouldn't stand on their side. Unless the Qin family wanted to become the biggest shareholder of Chao Yan, and join forces with the Jiang family and the Lu family to force Lu Chaoga to abdicate. Was that possible? Thinking about it, they were a bit expectant. However, Lan Shanggu and Lu Shu both knew that there was a 99% chance that this would happen. Why would the Qin family give up on Lu Chaoga, who was easy to control and suppress, and choose Lan Shanggu and Lu Shu, a huge family with a lot of resources? Everyone understood the logic of not being able to get rid of a big family. Don't joke with me, Lu Shu said with a gloomy voice. Because that would make me feel like a joke. Lan Shanggu patted Lu Shu's shoulder and said, Brother, you misunderstood me. It was just a slip of the tongue. I really wanted to praise you in my heart. Lu Shu looked at Lan Shanggu and said, although we really want to get the long-term agent of Chao Yen technology, our two families also need to maintain our dignity and independence. If we always put down our pride and bow, not only will they look down on us, even we will look down on ourselves. What do you mean? Close cooperation, Lu Shu said. Keep a distance, that makes sense. Lan Shanggu laughed and said, will Lu Chaoga and Fang Yan come to Jiang Zhuliu's wedding? It would be a slap in the face if he came, but it would be a slap in the face if he didn't come. The Jiang father and son are in a difficult position. Lu Shu lowered his head and drank his wine, not answering Lan Shanggu's question. Lan Shanggu felt bored and turned around to flirt with a young beauty beside him. On the tea stage surrounded by flowers, the lights shone brightly. In the warm and joyful wedding march, a couple walked out hand in hand. The applause below the stage was thunderous. Jiang Zhulu was dressed in a black suit, looking very handsome. He covered Shangxin's face with a white veil, looking extremely beautiful. When this beautiful couple walked out, everyone felt that they were a perfect match. After the MC finished his speech, it was the newlyweds' parents' turn to speak on stage. Qiang Long Tan had a strong aura, but he only said the usual words of wishing his daughter a happy life after marriage. The representative of the Jiang family was Jiang Shangxin's mother, Li Yun. She was a charming young woman. Her daughter had already married someone else, but she seemed to have gone back in time and did not age. Even though we are holding a Chinese-style wedding today, I am a devout believer. I would like to use the Western wedding etiquette to ask this couple a question in front of all the guests and their relatives. Shangxin, are you willing to marry this man to become your husband? Love him, take care of him, respect him, accept him, and be faithful to him until the end of your life, regardless of sickness or health, or any other reason. Li Yun was very emotional. Tears welled up in her eyes when she thought about how she was about to marry her precious daughter off. I am willing, Jiang Shangxin replied in a sweet voice. Zhulu, are you willing to marry this woman to be your wife? Love her, take care of her, respect her, accept her, and make her the happiest woman in the world, regardless of sickness or health, or any other reason. I am willing, Jiang Zhulu replied in a determined voice. I am not willing. At the same time, a low voice sounded at the entrance of the banquet hall. Chapter 454. I don't want to. These 4 words were like a clap of thunder that pierced through everyone's ears. It was like a bolt of lightning that pierced through everyone's field of vision. At such a sacred and blissful moment, wasn't someone purposely causing trouble by shouting, I don't want to, in such an ear-piercing voice? There was an uproar, and everyone turned around to search for the source of the voice. It wasn't a child's careless words, nor was it a mischievous prank from a mischievous person. Someone was really opposing this marriage. Could it be Jiang Zhuliu's lover? Apart from such a relationship, who else would stand up to oppose someone else's marriage? However, the person who shouted was obviously a man. Or was Jiang Zhulu a double? Or was this man here to disrupt the wedding because of Jiang Shangxin? Li Yun looked at her daughter worriedly. If things were really as she had guessed, this would be a huge scandal for the Jiang family. No matter how highly her father was regarded by the Jiang family, he would probably be severely punished. Jiang Shangxin felt her mother's worried gaze and shook her head slightly. She indicated that this matter wasn't what she had imagined. Li Yun was then relieved. As long as it wasn't a problem on her daughter's side, it would be a problem on the Jiang family side. If there was a problem on the Jiang family side, they would have an excuse to fly into a rage. It might even bring about some benefits for their family. The man stood at the entrance of the banquet hall. As the lights were shining, only a blurry shadow could be seen at the entrance. He walked over step by step, from the darkness to the light. His silhouette gradually became clearer, and it was completely presented to the guests. He had returned to the public eye after leaving for 3 years. Finally, someone remembered who he was. Ah, he is Fang Yan, the teacher from Rosefinch High School. He is back again. His martial arts skills are very good, and he even fought with the Japanese sword god. Do you remember? Didn't I say, why is he back again? Don't tell me, he and Jiang Zhulu. He wore a white shirt and cloth shoes, and his black hair was flying in the wind. His spine was straight, and he looked prouder than everyone else. He walked toward the podium step by step. His footsteps were light, and his body was agile. Many people discovered this strange situation. They realized that watching a man walk was a very pleasing thing to the eyes. Women were not the only ones who thought this way. Even men felt that he was walking a beautiful path. He walked in an imposing manner and was as elegant as an immortal. Fang Yan stood below the stage, his handsome face slightly raised. He looked at the newlyweds and their parents standing on the stage and said firmly, "I don't agree." He said again, "I don't agree." Jiang Julio's expression was extremely ugly as he forcefully suppressed the anger in his heart. He stared at Fang Yan and said, "Fang Yan, if you're here to bless and drink, I'll warmly welcome you. I'll definitely accompany you for a few drinks later. Let's not go home until we're drunk. If you're here to deliberately provoke and ruin my wedding, aren't you going too far?" There were hundreds of friends and relatives present, and they had just given me their most sincere blessings. Aren't you afraid of being condemned by thousands of people for insulting me like this? Jiang Zhulu lived up to his reputation as one of the 4 prodigies of Huaqing. Even though he was on the verge of exploding, his words were clear and logical. He naturally placed himself on the weaker side, winning the sympathy of everyone present. Moreover, he said that hundreds of guests had come to give him their blessings, but only Fang Yan was here to provoke and ruin his wedding. With one sentence, he pushed Fang Yan to the opposite side of all the guests present. Qiang Long Tan had been through a lot, and the change in front of him could not shake his mind. He sighed softly and looked at Fang Yan and said, "You're so young, but why are you so vicious? With your actions, it's my Jiang family and my son Zhulu who will be insulted. But have you thought about it? Nearly 1,000 pairs of eyes are watching you. Your words and actions will definitely spread. When that happens, you'll be infamous. Who would dare to associate with you, Fang Yan? Who would be willing to be friends with you, Fang Yan? I know that because of what happened to Chaoga, you and Zhulu had some conflicts in the past. But now, you and Chaoga are living together, and Zhulu has a girl he likes. Now, he's going to hold her hand and walk down the aisle. Let bygones be bygones, and a smile will wipe away all enmity. It'll be a good story if it gets out. It's inevitable that young people are hot-blooded. We can understand and accept it. But you've done something like this on a day like this. That's already crossed the bottom line of what we can bear. Do you really have to push our Jiang family to the brink of destruction? Fang Yan, stop. Don't walk your own path into a dead end." Qiang Long Tan was even more shrewd and ruthless. He kept saying that he was doing this for the good of the young, but he kept putting one evil label after another on Fang Yan's head. Each of his words led the guests below the stage to think. Could a fellow like Fang Yan become a comrade who would fight and retreat together with him? Fang Yan already knew what kind of people the Jiang father and son were. Even a smart woman like Lu Chaoga had been deceived by them for so many years. Even if he wanted to bicker with them, he wouldn't have much of an advantage. His eyes were cold as he looked at Qiang Long Tan and Jiang Zhulu. He said in a low voice, "I didn't intend to ruin their wedding, even though I really don't like them." Whoosh, a clamor rose from the ground. Wasn't this guy being too straightforward? Even if he really thought that way, there was no need to say it out loud in front of others. Wasn't this a public slap in the face? But this kind of feeling was really refreshing. It could be seen from the ashen complexion of Jiang Longtan and Jiang Zhulu. as well as their twitching brows. Fang Yen held out his hand to Qiang Long Tan and said, "Give me Lu Chaoga, I'll turn around and leave." Lu Chaoga? What happened to Lu Chaoga? Why did Fang Yen want Qiang Long Tan to give him Lu Chaoga? Everyone present was a shrewd person. When they heard Fang Yan's words, their eyes flickered. They knew that there was an inside story to this matter. "Fang Yen, I said that we didn't touch Lu Chaoga. The last time I saw Lu Chaoga was at a business conference a few months ago. I haven't seen Lu Chaoga since then. What does Lu Chaoga's disappearance have to do with the Jiang family?" Jiang Zhulu shouted through gritted teeth. "What happened to Lu Chaoga?" Qiang Long Tan looked at Fang Yen worriedly. He asked anxiously, "What happened to her? What happened to her?" "Lu Chaoga was kidnapped," Fang Yen said viciously, his eyes flashing with a murderous light. "She was kidnapped by you. You're slandering me," Jiang Zhulu said angrily. "You're slandering us. When did we touch Lu Chaoga? What evidence do you have to prove that we kidnapped Lu Chaoga? You don't have any, and you're slandering us in front of so many people. Just wait for the indictment." Qiang Long Tan threw a dirty look at his son, Jiang Zhulu, and said, "Zhulu, now is not the time to deny responsibility. The innocent are innocent, and the guilty are innocent. Let's find Chaoga and listen to her story. The truth will be revealed. Hurry up and send our people out to look for Chaoga. Let's call our friends and ask them to help with the search, and all our good friends and relatives here, please help with the search as well. Help me find Chaoga, and I, Qiang Long Tan, will owe everyone here a big favor." Qiang Long Tan bowed deeply to the audience, as if he was worried about his father. Some people were moved by Qiang Long Tan's kindness and righteousness, and they took out their phones to make calls. For a moment, the crowd kept ringing. Leverage. This was what it meant to be a master of leverage. No matter how dangerous the situation was, no matter how big the crisis, they could always find a fulcrum and successfully leverage it to lead things in the direction they wanted. From now on, Qiang Long Tan's image would be magnified in many people's hearts. He would become a good father who would let bygones be bygones and be the first to save his daughter when she was in danger. Qiang Long Tan turned to Fang Yen and said, "Fang Yen, tell us, what's going on with Chaoga? When did she go missing? Did you call the police? What did the police say? Who's in charge of the case? I'll call the person in charge. It'd be best if someone can come here and explain the situation." Qiang Long Tan had put aside his personal grudges and vendettas. All he wanted was to find his daughter, Lu Chaoga. "How am I going to explain it to Mingtu and his wife if anything happens to her?" Qiang Long Tan said with teary eyes. The old man was definitely an experienced actor. His acting skills were so good that he was able to get into character in no time. It had to be said that Fang Yen had made full preparations before coming here. However, after Jiang Longtan had created such a sensational drama, the rhythm had already been disrupted by him. The public opinion had already begun to spread in a direction that was not favorable to him. Once it exploded, it would be out of control. Qiang Longtan, stop putting on this hypocritical show. Don't you feel disgusted? Even if you don't, we all feel disgusted. In order to annex Longtu Group, you killed Chaoga's parents. Chaoga and you are irreconcilable enemies. Fang Yen was trembling with anger. Later, you found out that the Rubik's Cube technology was still in Chaoga's hands. You sent people to kill her several times. Some time ago, Chaoga received a secret report saying that you recruited killers from abroad to plan a kidnapping. But because Chaoyan Group has been developing rapidly in recent years and has been suppressing Longtu Group, and because you still haven't given up on the Rubik's Cube technology, who didn't know how to act to gain sympathy? Who didn't know how to make up a story? Half of it was true and half of it was false. Let the audience speculate on their own. Whether it was Qiang Longtan, Jiang Zhulu, or Fang Yen, a group of talented actors gathered together to show off their acting skills. Each of them had a chance to win an Oscar. Chapter 455. History was written by the victors, and the truth was made up by the victors. No one knew the truth, except for the person who knew the truth. Fang Yen resorted to all means possible to smear the Jiang family's father and son. He blended what he knew and then poured it all on the Jiang family's father and son. Jiang Zhuliu's counterattack was to show weakness and attack Fang Yan's character from the standpoint of the weak to win everyone's sympathy. Qiang Longtan's response was selflessness and love. He made himself into a great father who could bear any humiliation and grievances for the safety of his children. He didn't speak the truth, didn't present evidence, and didn't respond to Fang Yan's attack. However, this was the best way to respond. Each of them used their unique skills, and the hundreds of guests were dazzled and couldn't tell the truth from the lies. It was easy for humans to believe in what they saw and what they heard. However, what they saw and what they heard must be true. Now that Fang Yan jumped out and angrily accused the Jiang father and son, it naturally gave people the impression that the Jiang father and son had stabbed them in the back. At least there were suspicions in this regard. If they didn't stab them in the back, how could Fang Yan come over on the day of the Jiang family's wedding to ask for them? Hearing Fang Yan slander him for murdering his friend and his wife for money, Qiang Longtan's face turned angry. He glared at Fang Yan fiercely and shouted, "Ignorant boy, who ordered you to come here to frame me? I, Qiang Longtan, have always been upright, and I've never done anything like what you've said. If I say even half a word of falsehood, let me be struck by lightning and die a horrible death. Mingtu and his wife are my close friends and also my right-hand men in my business. I often think that if the two of them were still alive, what level would Longtu Group have reached by now? Is it number 1 in Huaxia? Or is it number 1 in the world?" With a sad and regretful expression, Qiang Longtan said, "It's a pity that the heavens are jealous of the talented. Ming Tu had passed away early, so he had passed all the work to me. My management ability was inferior to his, and my research ability was like the difference between a firefly and moonlight. But I can't slack off. I can only do my best to move forward. I'm also very sad that Mingtu is gone. But he's gone. What can I do? I took his only daughter, Chaoga, to the Jiang family and treated her like my own daughter. I loved her more than Zhu Lu, and I doted on her more than Zhu Lu. Everyone here, when have you ever heard of us mistreating Chaoga? Have any of you ever heard of our family treating Chaoga unfairly or wrongly? She said she wants to study abroad, and I support her. I support you 100%. The only thing we argued about was that she wanted to go to the country where her parents were killed. I wouldn't let her go no matter what. It was too dangerous and chaotic there. She wants to study education, and I think it's a good idea. It's a great thing for a girl to teach and educate others. I know Chaoga is smart, and I really hope that she can help me in the company after she graduates. But I respect any choice she makes." Qiang Longtan looked like an old man who had been forced into a corner by evil forces. He looked at the bride, Jiang Shangxin, with an apologetic expression on his face and said, "Yes, there's one thing that the Jiang family did not do right. It's not a secret, and I'm not afraid to say it in front of Shangxin and their relatives and friends. Zhu Lu and Chaoga have grown up under our watch. The more we look at them, the more we like them, and we hope that they can become a couple. In that case, won't our family be even closer? If they have another child, what a happy family that will be." I tried a few times and found out that Chaoga has no interest in Zhu Lu, so I gave up on the idea. Zhu Lu's mother spoils him too much, and she wanted to make this a success, so she put in a lot of effort. This is the opposite of Chaoga's original intention, and the Jiang family has let her down. Later on, Chaoga fell in love with a guy outside. She listened to slanderous rumors and argued that she wanted to split from us and take back her parents' shares. We were willing to give her the shares because they were left to her by her parents, and we wouldn't take advantage of her. But we can't split from the family. The new energy industry has been developing rapidly in the past few years, and everyone is trying to make it bigger and stronger. Why did we split a large company into two? What was that for? If we split it, what advantage would we have to compete with others? After listening to Qiang Long Tan's confession, there was a lot of discussion below the stage. That's right. I know about this too, and there was a huge argument at the time. Only someone crazy would split Longtu into two. If Longtu hadn't gone through all those things, it would definitely be developing even more fiercely now. Lu Chaoga is such a heartless woman. She was so easily fooled by that pretty boy outside that she wasted her good looks. Jiang Longtan fiercely looked at Fang Yan as if he was going to fight him to the death. He said, if she wants the shares, I'll give them to her. If she wants to split from the family, I'll split from her. Children are all grown up and have their own ideas. As parents, we can only do our best to support them, and if we can't, we'll have to forgive them. Fang Yan, tell me, who got the shares Lu Chaoga took with her? Who benefited the most from her Rubik's Cube technology? If I remember correctly, you're the third largest shareholder of Chaoyan Technology, aren't you? Fang Yan, you're just a gigolo. You're just a little Miss Rosefinch who became a billionaire because of Lu Chaoga. Chaoga was so nice to you, and she gave you her whole heart. Is this how you treat her? She's missing, she's been kidnapped, and we don't even know if she's alive or dead. Instead of trying to find someone to get her back, you're here to pester me? What's in it for you? If it makes you feel better. Jiang Longtan suddenly jumped down from the stage and rushed in front of Fang Yan. Like an angry rooster, he patted his chest and said to Fang Yan, if you feel comfortable doing this, then punch me a few times, kick me a few times. As long as it can make you happy and vent your anger, then please help me find my daughter Lu Xiaoga. She's too pitiful to be alone outside. Qiang Longtan was like a crazy father who had lost his mind. He had lost his usual gentleness and composure. He didn't care about dignity or face, and he didn't hesitate to let Fang Yan punch and kick him. Some people fought with their lives, while others fought with their power. Jiang Longtan had thrown caution to the wind at the most crucial moment and fought with his power. Therefore, he had taken control of the entire situation and gained the upper hand. No one would think that Qiang Longtan had lost his composure, because he was a father who had abandoned everything for his daughter. He was a father worthy of admiration and love. As a result, not only was Fang Yan hated by everyone present, but Lu Chaoga was also condemned as a disloyal and unfilial son. When it came to judging the situation, no one could compete with Qiang Longtan, that old fox. Fang Yan naturally couldn't punch and kick Qiang Longtan, because when Qiang Longtan finished speaking, a large group of people had already rushed over and used their bodies to shield Qiang Longtan. As if Fang Yan was really going to punch and kick Qiang Longtan, this old man was too cunning and too smart. While he was doing this, he had already calculated the reactions of the surrounding onlookers. Fang Yan looked coldly at Qiang Longtan's exquisite performance, and said in a steady and firm voice, don't take advantage of your seniority to play this kind of ridiculing trick. Hand Lu Chaoga to me, and I'll leave with her immediately. Otherwise, don't even think about continuing with today's wedding. Fang Yan swept a glance at Jiang Zhulu and Jiang Shangxin, the newlyweds, and said, you guys kidnapped my woman, so I won't let you guys live happily ever after. Seeing that a group of men in black, who were in charge of security, had received Jiang Zhulio's order to come over and arrest them, Fang Yan said with an indifferent expression, I can't win against you guys with words or acting, but I can win against you guys in a fight. Why don't you guys give it a try? The moment he said this, the crowd quietened down instantly. The men in black who were running toward him also stopped in their tracks, and they looked at Fang Yan, who was standing at the same spot and looking at them with a look of disdain. Was this guy really not a lunatic? They had seen arrogant people before, but they had never seen someone as arrogant as him. There were hundreds of guests present, and in addition to the service and security personnel, there were more than 1,000 people in the entire Longtu Club. Why did he have the courage to say something so stupid like he was the best in martial arts? If an expert were to stand out and beat him up, wouldn't he be so embarrassed? Qiang Longtan felt very aggrieved. The aura that he had painstakingly built up had been destroyed by these idiotic bodyguards just like that. Even if he couldn't win, he still had to go up and fight. There were still the police if he was injured. The police would only be able to charge him with intentional assault if they were injured. Of course, standing in his position, it wasn't very appropriate for him to get someone to go up and fight with Fang Yen at this point in time. Thus, he waved his hands to dismiss the bodyguards in black. He looked at Fang Yen and said, I know that you, Fang Yen, are very skilled, and even if all of us here were to join forces, we wouldn't be a match for you. I didn't kidnap Lu Chaoga, and it's impossible for me to kidnap Lu Chaoga either. Otherwise, you can beat the entire Jiang family to the ground and search for them yourself. Or you can help me find Lu Chaoga. No matter what, don't stand here and waste time. I won't waste my time, and I won't waste my time saving people, Fang Yen said loudly. I have evidence to prove that the Jiang family kidnapped Lu Chaoga. Chapter 456. A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. Fang Yan's shout of, I have evidence, made the atmosphere reach a new climax once again. This climax was hidden and buried. It was like a volcano in the deep sea. No matter how intense the eruption was, there were only a few ripples on the surface of the water. Everyone looked at each other with deep meaning in their eyes, but they didn't exchange any words. At such a sensitive moment, no one was willing to let others get hold of their weakness or show their excessive enthusiasm over some small details. It was a taboo in etiquette for these reputable people. Fang Yen didn't come to the Jiang family without any evidence, but he had solid evidence. Could it be that the Jiang family was really the mastermind behind the kidnapping of Lu Chaoga? What evidence did he have to prove that the Jiang family was involved in or directly plotting the kidnapping of Lu Chaoga? However, since he had evidence, why didn't he directly call the police and arrest the Jiang family? Everyone was waiting quietly, and many were secretly looking forward to it. If Fang Yen really threw out some strong evidence, the Jiang father and son would be completely thrown into the abyss today, never to rise again. Jiang Zhulu clenched his fists and shouted, Fang Yen, do you think my Jiang family has no one? The matter was obviously not done by the Jiang family. What evidence did he have? What evidence could he have? Even if he had evidence, it would be a frame-up. Fang Yen didn't yield an inch and pressed forward step by step, really forcing Qiang Longtan and Jiang Zhulu. This was Jiang Zhuliu's wedding. The bigger the matter was, the more chaotic the scene would be, and the more embarrassed the Jiang family would be. If the matter of today's wedding were to be spread out, would the Jiang family still have the face to see others in the future? This Fang Yan's mind was too vicious, and he was too good at choosing the right time. The best way was to keep the peace and end it here. However, this was obviously not what Fang Yen wanted to see. Jiang Longtan's sharp eyes were like needles that pierced Fang Yen. His voice was calm and dignified as he said, I just thought that you're a junior. This junior's way of doing things is a bit out of line, but there's still a reason that can be forgiven. Now I think you are a vicious beast that eats people without spitting out the bones. Fang Yen, you're forcing the Jiang family into a corner. Fang Yen, I know you hate our Jiang family. I know you want to destroy our Jiang family. Since you're here today, it seems that you've made sufficient preparations. Since you insist on doing this, I am not in a position to stop you. You say you have evidence, then show me your evidence. If you can't produce any evidence, I, Qiang Longtan, will kill myself on your body today. The Jiangs are all businessmen, but they are also hot-blooded. A tall, thin, and gentlemanly middle-aged man walked over. He looked at Fang Yen with an unfriendly gaze and said, This is the first time we've met, but I've heard of your name for a long time. Every time there's something related to you, you're the one who messes with others. Fang Yen didn't like hearing this. He coldly glanced at the middle-aged man and said, I'm very interested in every time you talk about something related to me. What are those things? You must not remember, right? 3 years ago, the Maple Leaf Club held a charity auction in Yanjing City. It was also you who messed with others and almost caused the auction to be cancelled. The middle-aged man said aloud, It's the same this time. This is a wedding, the most sacred and happiest moment for a couple of families. You jumped out and made a scene. Your words were vicious, your means were cruel, and you forced and humiliated people to death. Aren't you afraid of retribution? Fang Yan sneered and said, I'm sorry, but I still remember what you said. 3 years ago, when I returned to Yanjing for the festival, I heard that the music addict was going to perform at a gathering with my friends. I shamelessly asked someone to help me bring her into the Maple Leaf Club. I didn't expect that there would be people who didn't like us. They just scolded us a little and endured it. Who asked you to be the young masters of a famous family? We're just poor children from a small family. But you still want to step on us and never be able to rise again. We can't bear it anymore. So what if you're rich? You can bully people just because you're rich? 3 years ago, I retaliated after being bullied. 3 years later, it's still the same. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I won't let them off easily. Return Lu Chaoga to me. I'll turn around and leave. Your wedding can continue. Otherwise, I'll fight you to the death. You're twisting words and forcing logic. The middle-aged man sneered. Didn't you say that you have evidence to prove that the Jiang family is the mastermind behind the kidnapping of Lu Chaoga? Then show us your evidence. If you don't have any evidence, the Jiang family will demand justice from you. Jiang Fengxing was a direct descendant of the Jiang family. He was highly respected in the Jiang family because of his outstanding ability. Some of the important investments of the Jiang family required his approval. He was also Jiang Shangxin's father. This time, he represented the Jiang family to attend his daughter and Jiang Zhuliu's wedding. Naturally, he hated Fang Yan in every way for such a thing to happen during the wedding. His words on behalf of the Jiang family naturally had the power to make people take him seriously. Sure enough, the way some people looked at Fang Yan changed when they heard Jiang Fengxing mention the Jiang family's name. Everyone had heard that Fang Yan didn't have a harmonious relationship with the Jiang family. However, today, an important figure from the Jiang family stood out to warn Fang Yan. The meaning behind it was different. Don't threaten me. Fang Yan said calmly. Jiang Junling did something like this in the past. I slapped him back, you're the same. What a good slap back. I, Jiang Fengxing, will stand here and see how you're going to stir up trouble. Jiang Fengxing's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. His wife, Li Yun, quickly walked over and comforted him. She advised him not to get angry. Where's the evidence? Qiang Longtan stared at Fang Yan and shouted, Fang Yan, where's the evidence you mentioned? Master, returned Miss Lu to him. The old butler, who was standing beside him, said. Boom. It was like a volcano erupting on the ground. Lava suddenly filled the sky. Everyone could no longer remain calm. No one continued to stay silent. Heavens, the old butler of the Jiang family actually stood out to accuse the boss. Could it really be the Jiang family? It's hard to guard against a thief from the same family. The Jiang family father and son never thought that they would be defeated by their own family. Qiang Longtan's performance just now was really amazing. This old fox, he's really capable of anything. No one thought that the old butler of the Jiang family would stand out and accuse Jiang Longtan of asking him to release Lu Zhua. This knife was aimed straight at the heart. The pain was bone deep. Slap. Jiang Zhulu slapped the old butler's face. His eyes were bloodshot as he roared, Old dog Lu, tell me clearly. Who do you think should release Lu Zhua? The old butler's original name was Lu Tong. He was an old man who had followed Qiang Longtan to fight for the world. He was the person that Qiang Longtan trusted the most. He was also Jiang Longtan's brain and heart. Just like how every king had some dirty and evil things that needed someone to clean up. For example, the eunuchs and the imperial secret service in ancient times. Lu Tong was the confidant that Qiang Longtan had chosen to clean up these most private matters. It was also because of his recognition of Lu Tong that he entrusted the future hope of the Jiang family to him. Jiang Zhulu had deep feelings for Lu Tong. He had always called him Uncle Lu. He had never treated him as a servant. So, now that Lu Tong had stood out to stab the father and son, it was equivalent to betraying Jiang Zhulu emotionally. Even with Jiang Zhulio's years of self-control, he couldn't bear to lash out in anger. Lu Tong's face was slapped, but he still stood in the same place. He looked like he was ready to be whipped. Young master, I watched Miss Lu grow up. We're a family. There's really no need to be so ruthless. Jiang Zhulu was even more anxious and angry. He wanted to lash out again, but Qiang Longtan grabbed his arm. Zhulu, stop. Qiang Longtan said in a hoarse voice. Jiang Zhulu didn't dare to go against his father's words. He glared at Lu Tong viciously. If there weren't so many people present, he would have beaten this dog slave to death. Qiang Longtan patted Lu Tong's shoulder and said, I'm usually too busy with work, so I let you discipline Zhulu. He has feelings for you and has always treated you like family. That's why he's a little too emotional. As an elder, don't take it to heart. The child doesn't know any better. Master, I'm not angry. Lu Tong said. His expression was calm, but he was clenching his fists tightly. He was currently suffering in his heart. No matter what the reason was, standing out to report his master was a betrayal in the eyes of everyone. From now on, no one would ever trust him again. Zhulu doesn't treat you like an outsider. The Jiang family doesn't treat you like an outsider either. I even treat you like my best brother. Qiang Longtan's voice was hoarse, and he looked very emotional. Master, your love for me is as heavy as a mountain. I'll never forget it. Lu Tong said with red eyes. It's not easy for everyone to live. Maybe you have your difficulties, and I understand you. But I don't understand. Why? What can he give you? If you want, you can ask me for it. We're brothers. As long as you're willing to ask, I'll give you everything. Lu Tong, what can Fang Yen give you? What did he use to bribe you? Master, Fang Yen didn't bribe me. Lu Tong shook his head in denial. I've been by your side for a long time. When you and Mingtu first established Longtu Group, I was behind you. I was your trusted and taken care of. I watched Zhulu grow up, and so did Chaoga. I don't care what conflicts or grudges you have, and I can't do anything about it. But Chaoga has already lost her parents and left the Jiang family. Shouldn't we give her a way out? Isn't this a little too violent? Lu Tong bowed deeply to Qiang Longtan and said, Master, let Chaoga go. She's still young and doesn't know any better. Give her a way out. Chapter 457. Lu Tong denied being bribed by Fang Yen and insisted that it was Qiang Longtan and his son who had kidnapped Lu Chaoga. This was equivalent to nailing the father and son of the Jiang family to the pillar of shame. If Lu Tong was someone else, there wouldn't be such an effect. However, Lu Tong was the closest person to the father and son of the Jiang family. The power of this stab from him was so shocking. Old dog, I'm going to kill you. Jiang Zhulu roared. The person closest to you hurt you the most. He finally experienced the cruel feeling of being stabbed by someone close to him. Once again, he impulsively rushed towards Lu Tong, but was stopped by Feng Xing, who was standing beside him. Jiang Fengxing was a smart man. He knew that since Fang Yen had a way to get Lu Tong to testify against the father and son of the Jiang family, he must have something on Lu Tong or had made a deal with him. Lu Tong refused to let go. If Jiang Zhulu attacked him again, he would be confirming his crime. In the eyes of outsiders, he was angry out of humiliation and had a guilty conscience. It was extremely unwise to hurt someone in front of others. Zhulu, calm down. Jiang Fengxing pressed his palm on Jiang Zhulio's shoulder so that he couldn't move at all. He said, You will only fall into their trap if you continue like this. Dad! Jiang Zhulu shouted with reddened eyes, looking extremely aggrieved. He was calling his dad Jiang Fengxing. Although his and Jiang Shangxin's wedding had yet to be completed, the two of them were already husband and wife. In everyone's eyes, they were already a couple. This wedding was just a formality. In the end, it wasn't completed and Fang Yan came over to ruin it. Now, he had no choice but to consider a problem. Had their wedding already been completed, or should they choose another day to hold it again? It's all right. Jiang Fengxing patted Jiang Zhuliu's shoulder and said, nothing will happen. He's just a clown. He can't hold up in public. Lu Tong, you're killing me. Qiang Long Tan gritted his teeth and said. Why is it like this between us brothers? Master, if you let Chaoga go, I'll kowtow to you to atone for my sins. She's an orphan, poor girl. Lu Tong clenched his fists and stared straight into Qiang Long Tan's eyes, saying stubbornly. Forget it. Qiang Long Tan weakly waved his hand and said, you have the ability to kill people's hearts, and you also have the ability to kill people. We, father and son, admit defeat. We don't have Lu Chaoga, and we can't release her. If you want to hit or scold, kill or call the police, it's up to you. There are so many people here today, and they are all very good witnesses. Qiang Long Tan did not refute, nor did he resist. He looked dejected and resigned to his fate. Dad, Jiang Zhulu was so anxious that his eyes were red. He shouted, we are innocent, why should we admit it? They don't have any evidence. What right do they have to slander us? Let Fang Yan and that treacherous old dog produce evidence. As long as they produce evidence, I will kowtow to them and admit my guilt. Otherwise, don't expect me to bow my head. Don't expect me to admit defeat. Young people tended to be aggressive, and aggressive people tended to be impulsive. Impulsive people could do anything. Jiang Zhulu didn't have the calm and elegant demeanor of the four young masters of Huacheng. He was like an enraged cheetah, growling and wanting to charge at his opponent again and again. Enough. Qiang Long Tan suddenly turned around and shouted at Jiang Zhulu. What do you want? What can you do? It was as if someone had poured a bucket of cold water on top of his head in a world of ice and snow, and Jiang Zhulu suddenly came to his senses. Yes, what did he want? What could he do? Explain? Even Uncle Lu, who was closest to him, was on Fang Yan's side and accused him and his son of being the kidnappers. How could he explain himself? Even if he had 10,000 mouths, he wouldn't be able to explain himself. Fight? Fight with who? Fang Yan? Didn't the willow tree try? Was he willing to become the second willow tree? Jiang Zhulu suddenly felt a great sense of helplessness. It was like an ant finding it hard to lift an elephant, or a young eagle finding it hard to soar into the sky. He had the heart to kill the thief, but he couldn't. All this time, Jiang Zhulu had thought that he was powerful and omnipotent. It turned out that he had been wronged before, and he had been bullied until he couldn't lift a fist. He had experienced this twice. Fang Yan had given him the first time, and Fang Yan had given him the second time. Jiang Zhulu had never been so depressed before and his body was turning cold. After scolding his son, Qiang Long Tan turned to Fang Yan and said, you win. You're the biggest winner today. Let me repeat myself. I didn't kidnap Chaoga, so I can't hand her over to you. If you don't trust me, you can leave it to the police. I think they'll make a reasonable decision. No matter who they hand her over to, the criminal will be severely punished. Let me say this to you and your son, those who commit unjust acts bring about their own destruction. Fang Yan turned to leave and said, let's go. He said, let's go. Who would want to leave with Fang Yan? After the scandal between Fang Yan and the Jiang family, wouldn't leaving with Fang Yan mean breaking off all ties with the Jiang family? Many people looked at Fang Yan sarcastically. Did this idiot know anything about the ways of the world? More people were confused and wondered where Fang Yan got his confidence from. Why did he think that someone would bet on him? No matter how humiliated the Jiang father and son were today, they were still one of the four major families of Hua City. How could he compete with the Jiang family? They didn't expect that someone would really leave with Fang Yan, and it wasn't just one or two. Lu Shu was the first to stand up. Lu Shu didn't sit in a wheelchair today. He came with crutches. After hearing Fang Yan say, "Let's go," Lu Shu immediately stood up with the crutches beside him and followed Fang Yan to the door of the banquet hall without saying a word. Lan Shanggu's eyes widened. He felt like his lungs were about to explode from anger. Lu Shu was really a good-for-nothing. Just now, he was still teaching him to cooperate and not rely on others. He had to maintain his dignity and independence. Fang Yan's words were still floating in the air when you followed him like a dog. Was this what you meant by cooperation and not relying on others? Was this the so-called dignity and attitude you showed? Were you lying to me that I was uncultured? Of course, Lan Shanggu cursed Lu Shu in his heart. This person wasn't honest, but his speed wasn't slow either. After the willow tree stood up and left with Fang Yan, he immediately became the second person to stand up. He jogged to catch up with the willow tree and pretended to hold the willow tree's arm. He said, "Walk slowly, I'll hold you." Lu Shu unceremoniously shook off Lan Shanggu's arm. "If you want to leave, just leave. Do you need to find such a lame excuse?" 2 of the 4 talents of watching were taken away by Fang Yan at once. This was worth pondering. It should be known that whether it was the lame Lu Shu or the careless Lan Shanggu, they were both core figures that the Lu and Lan families were grooming as the next successors of their families. Now, they were both young talents who had a say in their families. After Fang Yan and the Jiang family had a showdown, they stood up to support Fang Yan without hesitation. Then, wasn't it obvious? They were more optimistic about Fang Yan. In other words, they thought that Fang Yan could bring them more benefits, more than what the Jiang family could give them. Moreover, the Lu family and the Jiang family were in-laws. Even their relatives had abandoned the Jiang family. Wasn't it obvious? First, the guests from the vassal families of the Lan and Lu families who came to congratulate them stood up. Their backbone had already left. What was the point of them staying? Then, some of the partners who had close relationships with the Lan and Lu families. They naturally had to follow in the footsteps of their partners. The hearts of the people scattered. The scene went out of control. In the end, even the guests who were on good terms with the Jiang family or had business dealings with them stood up and left. Some people even greeted Qiang Longtan out of respect. Some people lowered their heads and left, afraid that Qiang Longtan would hold them back if they were too slow. The banquet hall that was previously bustling with activity and could accommodate hundreds of people was now mostly empty. It looked miserable and cold. Lu Tong bowed deeply to Qiang Longtan. He glanced at Jiang Zhulu, whose eyes were red and bloodshot. Then, he turned around and followed the crowd outside. Traitor. Someone cursed at Lu Tong's back. Lu Tong tried his best to straighten his back and walked toward the main entrance with his head held high. Jiang Fengxing walked over and patted Qiang Longtan's shoulder. He said, "Old Jiang, don't take it to heart. Everything will be over soon. They will regret their choices today." Even though he said that, he and his wife still dragged their daughter away from this annoying place. Qiang Longtan's wife wanted to comfort her husband and son, but Qiang Longtan waved her away. Qiang Longtan chased everyone away. The banquet hall that could accommodate hundreds of people was only left with the Jiang father and son. Qiang Longtan sat down on the steps of the tea stage. He reached out to Jiang Zhulu and asked, "Do you have a cigarette?" Jiang Longtan did not smoke. He would only smoke once in a while when he was feeling extremely agitated. Obviously, Qiang Longtan's current mood could no longer be described as extremely frustrated. Since it was Jiang Zhulio's wedding today, he naturally had a few packs of cigarettes in his pocket. He took out a cigarette and passed it to his father. Then, he took out a lighter and lit it up for his father. Then, he took out a cigarette and lit it up. Following his father's example, he sat down on the red carpet without caring about his image. Qiang Long Tan took a deep puff of the cigarette and allowed the warm smoke to filter through his lungs. Then, he exhaled it gently. He looked in the direction of the empty main entrance and sighed softly. I haven't seen this kid for 3 years, and he has already become powerful. The younger generation will surpass the older. Chapter 458. Dad, you're still praising him at this point? Jiang Zhulu said in a dissatisfied tone. If Jiang Zhulu had to make a list of the people he hated the most, the first would be Fang Yan, the second would be Fang Yan, and the third would still be Fang Yan. There was only one name in the top 10, Fang Yan. Today was his wedding day, and it was ruined by that hateful guy. The wedding wasn't finished. The guests left, and the bride left. Which woman didn't want a beautiful and unforgettable wedding? This wedding was indeed unforgettable, and it would appear in every nightmare. Which parent didn't want their children to be happy and beautiful? The Jiang family must be very disappointed to be humiliated like this on their wedding day, right? Fang Yan was the opponent he wanted to get rid of the most at this moment. Because no man could endure such humiliation. Qiang Long Tan smoked the cigarette in his hand seriously, not caring about his son's attitude toward Fang Yan. He said, Fang Yan used to be very smart, but that's all. He only knew how to counterattack, but he never knew how to take the initiative. He was strong, but he was weak. Or rather, he was kind, he could even forgive Chaoga for using him. Lu Shu wanted to kill him, but didn't he let Lu Shu live? You can't say he's kind. Jiang Zhulu didn't want to hear anyone say a good word about Fang Yan. Not even his own father. He's just weak and afraid to take responsibility. You can say that. Qiang Long Tan didn't refute his son's words this time. Father died a tragic death in front of his house, and he mourned for 3 years at Swallow Dock. It seems that he's understood a lot of things in the past 3 years, and his personality has changed a lot. He knows how to take the initiative, and it's fine when he doesn't move, but when he does, it'll kill. Kill who? Jiang Zhulu said fiercely. He accused us of kidnapping Lu Chaoga, but what evidence does he have? If he can't, why should others believe him? Is there really no one who believes it? Qiang Long Tan stared into his son's eyes and asked. Jiang Zhulu had been afraid of his father since he was a child. He was not used to looking into his father's eyes at such a close distance. He turned around and took a puff of his cigarette. Even if a small number of people believe it, the Jiang family's reputation will only be affected a little. Do you really think that only a small number of people will believe it? Qiang Long Tan was not satisfied with his son's answer and asked again. No one listens to Fang Yan's words, but that old dog Lu Tong's knife is too deep. Jiang Zhulu became flustered and exasperated. If he didn't jump out to testify against us, how could we be in such a difficult situation? This is all part of Fang Yan's plan. Qiang Long Tan smiled coldly and said, after today, the Jiang family's reputation will be ruined. Dad, Jiang Zhulu was unwilling to admit the truth his father had said. This is the truth. That brat was too ruthless and too accurate. Do you really think he came to take Lu Chaoga away? He came to take away our Jiang family's dignity and face. He wants our Jiang family's reputation to be ruined, to become the talk of Huacheng and a laughing stock in their hearts. Haven't you noticed the frequency of his actions? From the moment he jumped out with a face full of anger and shouted that I didn't agree, he started digging holes and burying us father and son in them. He said he had evidence in his hands, so why didn't he say it the moment he appeared? He just wanted to use some time to spread the news of Lu Chaoga's kidnapping. He wanted to tell the whole story in front of everyone. He wanted to build momentum for himself and Lu Chaoga, so that everyone would automatically associate it in their hearts. So that they would subconsciously suspect us father and son to be the culprits behind Lu Chaoga's kidnapping. Qiang Long Tan looked at his son, Jiang Zhulu, and asked, did we kidnap Lu Chaoga? Of course not, Jiang Zhulu denied flatly. How could we do such a thing? We know we didn't. Do the guests here still believe it? Will the people of Huacheng who didn't come but heard the news believe it? I believe, at this moment, this matter has already spread to every corner of Huaqing, right? Whether Lu Chaoga was kidnapped by us or not, it is no longer important to us now. Because, everyone will see us as the number one suspect. This is the reason why that brat came here to cause trouble. He wanted to pull us down from the high platform. No, he wanted to step us into the mud. Qiang Longtan's thoughts were clearer and crueler, and he said, so, Lu Tong appeared. If it wasn't to destroy our Jiang family, why would he throw out such an important chess piece like Lu Tong at a time like this? He placed him beside us father and son, so that he could continuously pass on the information they want. Wouldn't this show the value of a chess piece? Lu Tong, why did he betray us? Didn't our Jiang family treat him well enough? We never treated him like a slave, we treated him like family. When Lu Tong was mentioned, Jiang Zhuliu's emotions fluctuated more intensely. When he was very young, his father handed him over to Lu Tong to take care of and teach him. Other than his father, Lu Tong was his closest and most trusted elder. Unexpectedly, when the Jiang family was in danger, he was the first one to jump out and stab the Jiang family. What's so hard to understand? Qiang Longtan shook his head and sighed, a little disappointed with his son's reaction. There is no such thing as loyalty in this world. Loyalty only comes from the lack of bargaining chips for betrayal. In the future, you must remember this in your heart. In this world, there is no one worthy of your trust, only those who are worthy of being used. I'll remember, Jiang Zhulu said, as if he was enlightened. Lu Tong, that old dog, taught me a lesson. I'll never forget it. Lu Tong's knife didn't kill us, nor could it kill us. But it left a fatal wound on our bodies. Qiang Longtan stepped on the cigarette but in his hand and rubbed it forcefully. This was the second knife that Fang Yan prepared. It was also the fiercest and most unexpected knife. Jiang Zhulu looked puzzled. Since they already have Lu Tong in their hands, why didn't they just ask him to take out their so-called evidence? How could such a show end so hastily after all this talk and no action? Isn't it a little too stupid? Because they don't have evidence, Qiang Longtan said. Because Lu Tong doesn't have evidence that you and I kidnapped Lu Chaoga. Then we should make that old dog Lu Tong stay and force him to take out the evidence in front of everyone. If he can't take it out, won't we be cleared of all suspicion? Can he stay? Qiang Longtan smiled bitterly. Lu Tong has been by our side for so many years, how many secrets does he know? He doesn't have evidence that we kidnapped Lu Chaoga, but he has a lot of evidence on other things. If we make him stay, he will spill everything. How can we face that situation? You mean, this is also Fang Yan's plan? When Qiang Longtan mentioned Fang Yan, his face once again showed a complicated smile of hatred and admiration. He knows we can't stay, he knows we don't dare to. He threw Lu Tong out to stab us, that's the value of the willow tree. He didn't follow up with another attack, so we can only silently endure it. Fang Yan is that smart? Jiang Zhulu didn't want to believe it. He was more willing to believe that it was all a coincidence. Zhulu, don't tell me you can't see the deeper meaning behind each of these events? If you still don't understand after coming this far, compared to Fang Yan, you are still far behind. Qiang Longtan said with some sadness. Who would want to admit that their son was not as good as someone else? Who would want to give up their father's dignity and pride? But the facts were laid out in front of him. Even if Qiang Longtan had a million reasons to speak up for his son, he couldn't say that his son was better than Fang Yan. He also prepared the third knife for our Jiang Kong. Qiang Longtan's palm gently stroked the thick red carpet under his butt. The first knife destroyed our prestige, making us unable to stand on the side of justice. As soon as he appeared, he packaged himself as a righteous and fair party, which is why I fought with him for the right to speak. We can't let them say everything, that way we can only be led by the nose. The second knife destroyed our influence. He used Lu Tong to destroy the reputation and connections that our Jiang family has accumulated for 100 years. Didn't you notice? Apart from the people of the Jiang family, no one else stood up for us father and son, because Lu Tong stood up. The moment Lu Tong stepped forward, he silenced everyone else. Even the people closest to us stood up and stabbed us in the back. What reason did they have to stand up for us? What reason did they have to fight alongside us? Our prestige was destroyed, our power was disintegrated. But our spirit was not dispersed. So, Fang Yen prepared the last knife for us. The third knife was when Fang Yen left, Lu Shulan, Gu Gu, and the others also left. Their departure led to the departure of even more people, and in the end, the situation got out of hand. Why is our Jiang family known as one of the 4 great families of watching? It's because there are people who fear the power of the Jiang family, and look up to the Jiang family. With a shout, people gathered. But, after Fang Yan's third knife stab, our Jiang family, this elephant, was completely dragged down by him, and fell to the ground in a very unsightly manner. Even those people we didn't look at before dared to leave. What right do we have to be one of the 4 great families of watching? Qiang Long Tan's smile was bitter, and also very bitter. From today onwards, the Jiang family will be removed from the 4 great families of watching. Chapter 459. From today onwards, the Jiang clan would be removed from the 4 major clans. This was the most serious consequence that Jiang Zhulu could imagine. It wasn't the sacrifice of a single member of the clan, but the entire Jiang clan would be buried in a deep pit. In other words, he would no longer be able to speak equally with the people in Lu Shulan Valley. Those who used to look up to and admire him would also abandon him. In the future, he would no longer be one of the 4 prodigies of watching. There would be someone new to replace him. Although he had never cared about such intangible things before, he was now starting to worry about personal gains and losses. It was hard for him to imagine that when people talked about the 4 prodigies of watching in front of him, they wouldn't mention Jiang Zhulu. Instead, they would casually mention another unfamiliar name. The higher one climbs, the harder one falls. This was the burden that he would have to bear in the future. He couldn't believe it, and he didn't want to believe it. Dad, is the situation really that serious? Jiang Zhulu asked in a sorrowful voice. Yes. Qiang Longtan said, is it hard to accept? How is it possible? The Jiang clan is still the Jiang clan, it's just a little ugly. How can we be removed from the 4 major clans? Who can replace the Jiang clan? The Lu clan? Or the Fang clan? Qiang Long Tan knew that it was hard for his son to accept. How could he be willing to accept it? He was the core of this generation of the Jiang clan, the head of the Jiang clan. The Jiang clan had risen to the peak in his hands, but was it also going to fall into hell because of him? However, he was looking at the long term. When Lu Tong stood up and stabbed him, he had already guessed that there would be such a possibility. He had already begun to disperse the pressure in the depths of his heart, so he could now accept it calmly. However, Jiang Zhulu had just realized the severity of the situation, so it was inevitable that he would lose his composure like this. No one is afraid from afar, and no one is surrounding us. Words cannot be moved, and promises cannot be tempted. How can a clan like this still be one of the 4 major clans? In the eyes of those people, the status of the Jiang clan is far inferior to that of Lu Chaoga, Fang Yan, or the other Su, Huang, and Yi clans. If they had a choice, they would also stand on the opposing side. This is the general trend. Even if we cling to the signboard of the 4 great clans, what can we do? A family that is ridiculed, belittled, and even ignored by the outside world, what does that mean to us? It's just a joke for no reason. Qiang Long Tan sighed softly and said, that's why I said the younger generation will surpass us in time. Fang Yen sharpened his sword for 3 years, and this sword pierced straight into the heart of our Jiang family, leaving us no room for resistance. To live in the same era as such an opponent is your fortune, but also your sorrow. Is he really that scheming? Did he really have a flawless plan? Even you don't have any way to fight back? Even if I'm inferior to him, how can he possibly be your opponent? Jiang Zhulu asked unwillingly. He didn't want to believe it. He didn't want to believe it. He still remembered the first time he met Fang Yen. At that time, he was still a somewhat inexperienced rookie. Except for his vicious mouth, there was almost nothing about him that people should respect or be vigilant against. Just a rookie. He once commented on Fang Yen in front of the willow tree. Now, that rookie had been reborn, and turned into a phoenix that soared above the 9 heavens. After the willow tree was disfigured by him, because of the Rubik's Cube, it was tied to the same chariot, unable to move. If it resisted even a little, he would kick it out of the fast-moving train, and then the Lu family would instantly abandon it in some unknown corner. By using the willow tree, Fang Yen was also insulting the willow tree. By leading the Lu family forward, he was also whipping the Lu family's butt. This kid, every move made people gnash their teeth in anger, but it was also hard to defend against. What about himself? He was even more miserable than the willow tree. It's good for young people to suffer some setbacks. Right now, Fang Yan's way of doing things is both experienced and vicious. Even if people know that he's slandering them, even if they know that he's digging a hole to bury them, we still have to hold hands and jump in together. Does this kind of growth have nothing to do with his father's departure? Qiang Longtan patted Jiang Zhuliu's shoulder and smiled. Maybe, after I leave, you will also grow a little faster, Dad. Jiang Zhuliu's face was full of shock. Don't say that, I feel like I'm still far behind you. Give me some more time to study. Qiang Longtan smiled. Your grandfather said that I'm a yellow ox and a dog. I have the diligence and patience of a yellow ox, but I also have the savagery and cunning of a dog. I have a lot of confidence in my life. I thought that I'd run amok for my entire life, but I didn't think that, at my old age, I would be bullied by a young boy to this extent. He brought a large basin of fresh dog's blood and said, Qiang Longtan, I'm going to pour this basin of dog's blood on your head, and then he did it. We didn't have any ability to retaliate. Just now, did you feel especially powerless? There will be many more days in the future. If I don't get my revenge, then I'm not a man. Jiang Zhulu sneered. He can be arrogant for a moment, but can he be arrogant for the rest of his life? Don't seek revenge for revenge's sake. If there are benefits to be gained, why don't we all sit down and drink tea, chat, and become friends? Qiang Longtan tried to console his son. A person doesn't live to fight. That kind of life is too dark, and there's no sense of accomplishment. What we want is to control the situation, to maximize our benefits, to become the best person in a certain field. This kind of life is worth looking forward to. Jiang Zhulu pondered for a long time, then looked at his father and asked, then, who kidnapped Lu Chaoga? Who knows? Qiang Longtan shook his head. Everyone who covets the Rubik's Cube has this possibility. Even Fang Yen could be the mastermind. Fang Yen? Jiang Zhulu was shocked. Did he direct and act out this show? He directed this show himself, then threw the dirty water on us, and finally became the biggest winner in this matter. With this kid's scheming methods, it's not surprising that he could do something like this. Qiang Longtan said in a low voice. Jiang Zhulu sucked in a breath of cold air. It was only then that he felt fear. Fear because he had a rival named Fang Yen. A guy like this, what wouldn't he do? Qiang Longtan looked at Jiang Zhulu and asked, if you were Fang Yen, what would you do? Do what? What would I do to Lu Chaoga? A hint of panic flashed in Jiang Zhuliu's eyes as he said, I don't know, you really don't know, or you don't want me to know? Jiang Zhulu gritted his teeth and said with a firm voice, I guess we'll never see each other again. Qiang Longtan nodded and said, that's the best choice. It seems he thinks the same as you. If Lu Chaoga was kidnapped, then let her disappear from this world forever. Fang Yen was originally the third largest shareholder of Chaoyan Technology. If Lu Chaoga really disappeared, then with his relationship with the Qin family, they could work together to divide the shares under Lu Chaoga's name and take control of Chaoyan Technology. Fang Yen would soar to the sky because of this. When Fang Yen walked out of the Longtu Club entrance, a GMC off-road RV was already parked on the side of the road waiting. Seeing Fang Yen walk over, the front passenger door opened and Qining jumped out to help open the back door. After Fang Yan got in the car, Qining was about to close the door when he saw Fang Yan's eyes. He stopped what he was doing and waited by the side with the door open. Lu Tong followed closely behind and got in the car, followed by Lu Shu, who limped over, and his old friend Lan Gulu. Fang Yan nodded and Qining tactfully closed the door. When Qining jumped back into the front passenger seat again, the RV slowly started. Lan Shanggu looked at Fang Yan with a smile and said, "Master, I know you have a lot of things to take care of when you come back, so I didn't rush over to bother you. I was thinking of finding time to treat you to a drink. I didn't expect to meet you today." "There's no hurry to drink," Fang Yan said. Lu Shu looked at Fang Yan and asked, "Miss Lu Chaoga, was she really kidnapped?" "She was really kidnapped," Fang Yan said in a low voice. The atmosphere in the car suddenly became heavy, and even breathing became more difficult than before. Lan Shanggu didn't speak, and Lu Shu didn't speak either. Lu Tong lowered his head and pretended not to hear their conversation. Seeing their expressions, Fang Yan understood what they were thinking and said, "She's very important to me, I want to save her." Seeing Fang Yan's attitude, Lan Shanggu and Lu Shu clearly felt a lot more relaxed. If Fang Yan had his own selfish motives and was willing to abandon that woman, they would have to make a choice again. Would they be loyal to Fang Yan, or loyal to their previous partners? The answer to this question was self-evident. Lan Shanggu took out his phone from his pocket and dialed a number, then said, "Find Lu Chaoga." Lu Shu also took out his phone and sent 3 words to a number that wasn't recorded on his phone, "Lu Chaoga." Fang Yan sighed softly and said, "Everyone, from now on, will be in the same boat, sharing wealth and prosperity. If the boat is about to capsize or fall apart, you can find someone else, I'll tell you to take care. But if we're sailing smoothly, and there's still someone who's half-hearted, then don't blame me for being impolite. Even if the boat is about to capsize or fall apart, do I have any other choice?" Lu Shu asked back. The answer to this question had already expressed his attitude. Lan Shanggu smiled and said, "Master, from now on, I'll follow your lead." Chapter 460. The car stopped at the corner leading to the highway, where Lu Shu and Lan Shanggu got off. Their car followed behind, so they didn't have to worry about walking back to the city. "Goodbye, Master." Lan Shanggu stood at the door and said goodbye to Fang Yan. "We'll do our best to find Miss Lu." "Thank you," Fang Yan said. The car door closed and the GMC set off again. Watching the car disappear into the distance, Lan Shanggu asked, "Are we really going to look for her?" Lu Shu thought for a moment and said, "He's really going to look for her." Lan Shanggu nodded with a smile and said, "If he's really going to look for her, then we'll really look for her." The huge and heavy car quickly drove on the highway to watching. Only Fang Yan and Lu Tong sat in the spacious and luxurious back compartment. Fang Yan was silent and Lu Tong felt uneasy. When Lu Shu and Lan Shanggu were here, he felt more relaxed and comfortable. Now that Lu Shu and Lan Shanggu were gone, why did he feel uneasy all over? Lu Tong suddenly remembered that when Lu Shu and Lan Shanggu were sitting here, the atmosphere was also a bit gloomy, and they were deliberately flattering him when they spoke. Obviously, they were afraid of Fang Yan, or had something to ask of Fang Yan. This man who disappeared for 3 years, showed the aura of a king as soon as he returned. Was this just a temporary illusion, or was the energy that had been secretly accumulated over the years finally going to explode? Was Fang Yan going to become the representative of the rising power in Huaqing? No matter what, after this battle, no one could ignore his existence anymore. Fang Yan was in Huaqing. Fang Yan seemed to have just remembered Lu Tong's existence. He turned his body slightly so that he could talk to Lu Tong, and his expression deliberately softened. He seemed to be more polite than he was to Lu Shu and Lan Shanggu. "Mr. Lu, it's been hard on you," Fang Yan said gratefully. Lu Tong paused for a few seconds, then sighed heavily and said, "I just did what I promised, Master." When he heard Lu Shu and Lan Shanggu call Fang Yan young master, he followed suit. He knew very well that Fang Yan was just a teacher at Rosefinch Secondary, oh, no, a security guard. Betraying one's master was a disgrace in anyone's eyes. Even though Fang Yan was speaking to him amiably now, he also understood the other's thoughts. It was impossible for him to look up to someone like him. If he kept his moral integrity, he wouldn't be able to keep his life. If he kept his life, he would lose his dignity. It's so hard to be a human. Fang Yan nodded and said, I still have to thank you. Without you, we wouldn't have been able to expose the ugly faces of the father and son of the Jiang family in front of so many people. You have been with them for so many years, you should know what kind of despicable people they are, right? Lu Tong remained silent. The reason he didn't answer was not because he still wanted to pick up some things that he had abandoned, such as dignity and moral integrity. Some things were lost and could never be found again. He just didn't know how to answer this question. Jiang Longtan and Jiang Zhulu, father and son, had indeed done quite a number of evil deeds. Furthermore, a large portion of those deeds had been arranged by him. He was the executor, the garbage cleaner who helped the father and son of the Jiang family. By betraying the father and son of the Jiang family, he was actually betraying himself. However, it was also because he had no other choice. Fang Yan didn't care whether he answered this question or not. He said to himself, your little son will be fine. I will let him go. I will let him gamble less and do something serious. He lost so much that he pawned his hands and feet. This is no longer gambling, but gambling with his life. If they really cut off his hands and feet, is he still human? Yes, yes. Master is right. Lu Tong nodded again and again. At this time, if Fang Yan said that shit smelled good and you had a taste, he would also nod and say that he had a good taste. It couldn't be helped. Who asked his little son's life to be in someone else's hands? Lu Tong had 2 sons. His eldest son fell ill when he was very young, and his body was paralyzed and unable to move. His younger son was healthy and smart, but because his family pampered him too much, he developed a bad habit of being arrogant and lascivious. His younger son liked to gamble, which made Lu Tong very worried. Gambling was the most uncontrollable thing. When one was angry, his wife and son would bet everything on it. Gamblers could easily lose control, and once they lost control, they could do anything terrible. Lu Tong talked to his younger son several times, but the results were not ideal. Recently, he cut off his son's financial supply, and wanted to use the method of cutting off food to change his bad habit. He didn't expect Lu Tong to find someone to borrow from usury, and before the loan was paid off, he pawned his hands and feet at the God of Wealth casino in Huacheng. If a normal person won over his son's hands and feet, it would be easy to solve the problem. It was just paying back the money. Lu Tong had followed the father and son of the Jiang family for many years, and had some savings. He was confident that he could help his son settle this matter. Moreover, even if he couldn't solve it, he could ask the father and son of the Jiang family for help. If Qiang Longtan or Jiang Zhulu were willing to help, the other party would more or less give some face and end this matter. Who would want to become enemies with the Jiang family? However, it was Fang Yan's people who came looking for him. If Lu Tong still didn't know that his son had fallen into someone else's trap, then he would have served Qiang Longtan for so many years in vain, to stand up and become enemies with his old master, or to let his younger son become a cripple like his eldest son, paralyzed in bed for the rest of his life. The choice wasn't too difficult. Fang Yan looked at Lu Tong's bowing appearance, and his heart was slightly bitter. This was also a father who could sacrifice everything for his son. It was a little familiar, but also a little strange. What's your plan for the future? Fang Yan asked. Lu Tong was stunned for a moment, and his eyes stared at Fang Yan with suspicion and vigilance. Wasn't this just a one-time deal? He stood up to help Fang Yan, and Fang Yan returned him a complete son. Why did he have to ask him what his plan was? Fang Yan smiled and said, if you help me, you'll naturally offend the father and son of the Jiang family. You know very well how the Jiang family does things, and there's another general family standing behind them. In Hua City, only I can protect you from death. In Hua Xia, only I can protect you. You dare to take me in? Lu Tong asked in a hoarse voice. He was a traitor who had just betrayed his master's family. He was already prepared to bear the curses of tens of thousands of people, and was prepared to receive the revenge of the Jiang family and others. In order to save his son, he had to pay this price. Of course, there was a possibility that his son would still be killed by them in the end. I don't need your loyalty, I only need your ability. Fang Yan smiled. From today onwards, you're my butler. Eldest young master, Lu Tong looked at Fang Yan in shock. Was this man crazy? He had just betrayed his previous master, and now he had a new one. Don't ask me what I think, just tell me what you think. Fang Yan's finger tapped on the armrest of his seat as he asked. Thump. Lu Tong slid down from his seat and sprawled on the ground in front of Fang Yan. His movement was so big that Qi Ning, who had been on guard the entire time, almost shot him to death. However, after comparing the martial prowess of Fang Yan and Lu Tong, he gave up on this method. Eldest young master, from today onwards, I'll be a vicious dog at your feet. I'll bite whoever you want me to bite. I don't ask for great wealth, I just want to ensure the safety of my family. Qi Ning, make the arrangements. Fang Yan said. Yes. Qi Ning answered and began to make a call. He only needed to make a call, and the members of Lu Tong's family who were under their control would immediately be moved to a safe place. A place that was difficult for outsiders to come into contact with. The GMC RV stopped at the underground parking lot of the God of Fortune Casino. Under the lead of a blonde, a few men in black helped a pale young man walk over. Seeing the thin and delicate young man, Lu Tong was so happy that his eyes were brimming with tears. He ran over and slapped his face again and again. Teacher, the blonde stood under the car and respectfully greeted Fang Yan. This kid hasn't changed his gambling habits. He lost both his hands and feet. When we locked him up, he still wanted to borrow money from us to continue gambling. He said he wanted to win his hands and feet back. How could he win? Who would win for him? Idiot, oh right, Boss Zhao asked me to say hi to teacher. He said that in the future, if teacher wants to entertain someone, just tell him in advance and he'll definitely treat that person well. Fang Yan didn't respond to Boss Zhao's greeting. Instead, he looked at the blonde and said with a gratified expression, some people use knowledge to harm others, while others use knowledge to save others. San Xian, you belong to the latter. I'm very satisfied with your performance. San Xian's face was flushed with excitement. He held his head high, chest out, and legs together. He loudly said to Fang Yan, this is all because of teacher's guidance. I've just achieved a small achievement, but I'll definitely not be arrogant and impatient, and make greater contributions to the country and society. San Xian was the one who took the credit for Lu Tong's betrayal. He was the one who found out that Lu Tong's son, Lu Wei, was a gambling addict. He and Boss Zhao from the God of Fortune Casino worked together to set up a trap to win his hands and feet. He was also the one who personally negotiated with Lu Tong. A blonde hooligan gave him a big enough stage, and he was able to blossom with brilliance that no one could look directly at. I'm looking forward to your future. Fang Yan said. Lu Tong trembled with anger. You set up a trap to frame my son, and you call that using knowledge to save others? You call that a small achievement? You even say you want to make greater contributions to the country and society? Lu Tong was angry, so he slapped his son even harder. Chapter 461. Pa. Lu Chaoga heard the sound outside, and her consciousness gradually woke up. She opened her eyes and quickly closed them again. The light was too bright for her eyes to adapt. Her last memory still stayed in their car into the truck compartment, and the truck door closed into extreme darkness. Then the car swayed all the way forward. Finally, their brains became heavier and heavier, and then they all fell asleep. Now thinking about it, the truck compartment must have been sprayed with some kind of drug. The drug was sent into the car through the air conditioning gas circulation system of the Mercedes-Benz. Even without opening the door, it could make them lose the ability to resist. What is this place? She was lying on an iron bed with a white bedding on it. Although there was no object covering her body, and her body was curled up because of the cold, she was treated very well compared to the status of a kidnapped hostage. The room was simple, with a white iron table and 2 white iron chairs. There was nothing else. Lu Chaoga felt a little dizzy, as if the bed had been shaking, or the whole room was shaking gently. The door of the room was pushed open, and a tall man with a beard came in. The man was wearing a desert-colored military camouflage suit. The front of the coat was open, revealing a small black vest and strong chest muscles that were fuller than a woman's chest. On his feet was a pair of black military leather boots. The leather boots clattered on the ground, and every step seemed to make a hole in the floor. The man's left hand was holding a glass of water in a glass. The man's right hand was holding a knife, a sharp dagger with different depths of serrations. The man put the water in his left hand on the iron table in the room, then pulled out the chair and sat down. Looking at Lu Chaoga, who was sitting on the bed and looking at him with a vigilant face, he said with a smile, "We have said hello, I am the Lord God. You should remember my voice, right?" Lu Chaoga jumped out of bed, pulled out another chair, and sat down in front of the Lord God. Dignified and elegant, without any awareness of being a hostage. She pointed to the glass of water in front of her and asked, "May I?" "It's prepared for you," the Lord God said. "Drink it and detoxify yourself." Lu Chaoga picked up the glass of water and drank it in one gulp. She felt that she was really thirsty. Every cell in his body was screaming for water. The Lord looked at Lu Chaoga thoughtfully and said, "You're really not afraid of death." "We've already discussed this issue," Lu Chaoga said impatiently. "I think, as a kidnapper, your time is more precious than mine. We can go straight to the next part." The god laughed and looked at Lu Chaoga with admiration. "It's a pity that I don't like women, otherwise I would definitely like you. You're such a..." The Lord thought for a few seconds and finally came up with a suitable adjective. He said, "Superb." Whoosh, 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 the sharp blade in the Lord God's hand spun into a beautiful knife flower, and said with a smile, "So I also brought a knife." Lu Chaoga looked at the Lord God and didn't respond, quietly waiting for his next move. Not impatient, not anxious, not panicked, not afraid. As she said, she was prepared for the worst. The Lord God stared at Lu Chaoga's dignified and beautiful face for a while, then said helplessly, "Meeting a hostage like you is a very unlucky thing for the bandits, because we can't find any sense of accomplishment in it. A woman who doesn't understand fear, this is the first time I've seen it. A kidnapper who talks so much nonsense, this is also the first time I've seen it," Lu Chaoga said coldly. The Lord God laughed and said, "Kidnappers also have emotions, likes and dislikes. It's because I admire you so much that I can't bear to use torture in the past. How about we choose a more peaceful way of communication?" "What kind of peaceful way of communication?" "Give me the Rubik's Cube technology, and I'll keep you alive," the Lord God said. "With the scale of your assets now, even if you hand over the Rubik's Cube, you won't have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of your life. Moreover, you are so beautiful that countless men are willing to do anything for you. Even if they lie at your feet and become a dog, they will also rush to you. I know men too well, you won't lose anything, and you can live a happier and more comfortable life." "Sounds good," Lu Chaoga said with a blank expression. "Don't you think so?" The Lord God comforted softly and said, "In the years you have held the Rubik's Cube, when have you ever had real freedom? You have to follow a large group of people when you go in and out, someone has to go in and check first when you go to the toilet, and someone has to taste everything you eat first. How many assassination attacks have you experienced? How many bodyguards have you sacrificed? Why bother? You have a lot of money but you don't squander it, you have a good time but you don't enjoy it, why do women make it so difficult for themselves? For something that is no longer important to you, you bet your beautiful little life, is it worth it? It's not important to me. Lu Chaoga said, it's important to him. Fang Yan? The Lord God's face was full of sarcasm, and his tone became contemptuous and disdainful. He said, that pretty boy? Besides having a sissy face, what else could he do? What else can he bring you? Do you need to be so devoted to such a useless man, even at the risk of dying? Lu Chaoga looked at the Lord God and said, in this world, there is hatred because of interests, but there is absolutely no love without reason. What he has done for me, you don't need to know. What I can do for him, you can witness. The smile on the Lord God's face gradually faded, and his eyes were murderous as he said in a hoarse voice, I will kill you, this is what I am best at, this is what I am willing to do for him. Lu Chaoga said. If I really die, he will be the biggest winner. As long as the Rubik's Cube is not lost, Chao Yen will not fall. I have already made a will that if anything happens to me, all the shares of Chao Yen under my name will be given to Fang Yen. In that case, he will become the largest shareholder of Chao Yen, he will gain true control of Chao Yen. The tiredness on Lu Chaoga's face faded a little, and she said in a very relaxed tone, if Chao Yen falls into his hands, it will be even more difficult for you to take away the Rubik's Cube. He is not a very easy person to talk to. The Lord God did not speak for a long time. Is this woman crazy? Of course she is not crazy. She is Lu Chaoga, the lifelong owner of the Rubik's Cube technology, the person in charge of Chao Yen technology, and a revolutionary in the field of new energy. In the second year of Chao Yen Technology's founding, she was named the Best Technology Entrepreneur of the Year by Huaxia Finance. In the third year of Chao Yen Technology's founding, she was also named the Best Entrepreneur of the Year by Huaxia Finance. Because the whole year was full of publicity and reports about the little flame of Chao Yen Technology. The United States Time magazine published her photo on the cover of the annual Christmas special issue. The advertising words were, this woman has illuminated Huaxia and will illuminate the world. Everyone knew that she was an outstanding woman, a strong woman who was worshipped by countless people. However, if you say that she is not crazy, the Lord God is not willing to believe it. Because every word she said is too crazy and too unreasonable. What love does a woman like her need? As long as they run the business well, they will have the world. Everything in the world can be taken, including men. However, she said that she is willing to die for a man. Moreover, she is very happy that if she dies, the man will inherit her inheritance and control her business. Isn't this something that only a madman can do? I don't believe it. The Lord God said. I don't believe that there will be such a person in the world, there will be such a woman. He grabbed Lu Chaoga's arm and put her palm on the table. The sharp edge of the dagger in his hand pressed on the back of Lu Chaoga's hand and said, if I stab like this, your beautiful little hand will be ruined, I know. Lu Chaoga said. Now that she has prepared for the worst, what she is facing now is one of the worst. The Lord God's eyes were slightly cold, and the knife in his hand slowly pressed down. The skin on the back of Lu Chaoga's hand was cut, and blood flowed out along the sharp teeth of the knife. Then it pierced through the flesh and bone, and the sharp blade went through the back of Lu Chaoga's hand. Clang! It was not until the tip of the knife hit the steel table that the Lord God stopped his movements. What do you think? The Lord God grinned and looked at Lu Chaoga and asked, in fact, it doesn't hurt when it's stabbed in, but it hurts when it's pulled out. There are 21 barbs on my knife. When I pull it out of your palm, it will pull out your skin, your flesh, and your meridians together. What is the feeling of tearing the heart and splitting the lungs? You must not have tried this feeling. But I can let you taste what is the feeling of tearing the flesh. Why not just cut your throat? Lu Chaoga did not struggle. There was no point in struggling in front of such a man. It would only provoke the other party to use more intense and cruel means. Her forehead was covered with beads of sweat, and even her messy hair was soaked with sweat. Because of the pain, the muscles on her face kept twitching, and her arms were trembling violently. This has nothing to do with human psychological quality, but the natural reaction of the body. It's more concise and convenient. I have read some psychological books. People will be more awake when facing the threat of life and death. Maybe then I can know what I want. Chapter 462. Slit the neck. The Lord sneered. If you slit the neck, you will die. If you die, who am I going to find for the magic cube? I am not so stupid to fall into your trick. Can you still feel your palm? Feel it well, feel every time it brings you pain and tremble, feel it cut through the pores and flesh by the blade, feel your blood freeze a little bit, and your body lose contact a little bit. Screech. The wrist of the Lord holding the knife was lifted up, and the sharp blade that pierced Lu Chaoga's palm was pulled out by him. Whoosh, the blood gushed out like a blood fountain. The bright red blood splashed on the face and body of the Lord, and Lu Chaoga's own face and body. Lu Chaoga's white and smooth face was speckled with red blood drops, which looked strangely coquettish and sexy. She didn't make people feel pitiful. She never made people feel pitiful. She was a fastidious person and a woman who was strong enough to die bravely and tidy up her clothes to make herself elegant and calm. The rain of blood fell from the sky, and the Lord stuck out his tongue to lick the blood stains on the corners of his mouth and began to become excited. He held the dagger with teeth upside down, laughed and looked at Lu Chaoga, and said, Lu Chaoga, how do you feel? Do you enjoy it? I am already excited. Are you the same as me? Lu Chaoga's face was as white as paper, and her forehead was sweaty. The pierced palm trembled on the table, but it tried its best to maintain its previous sitting posture. Her two long legs were together, and her upper body was trying to straighten up to support her weak body because of excessive pain. Lu Chaoga didn't answer the Lord's words. If there was still a trace of strength, she would use it to resist the Lord's attack again. The Lord was very satisfied with the effect of his knife, and looked at Lu Chaoga and said, the second knife I stabbed your right hand, still stabbed in the hole just now. I just said, I appreciate you. So, I really can't bear to hurt you. This was the damage stacking skill. Everyone knew that the position of injury was the most painful and sensitive. Not to mention a stab, even a breath of air towards the wound would be so painful that it would be hard to breathe. Stabbing him in different places was just an extra stab. However, if he stabbed the original injured spot again, the damage would be stacked. This damage effect was no longer as simple as one slash after another. Instead, it was multiplied by several times. Not to mention a weak girl like Lu Chaoga, even those famous assassins in the mercenary world would find it hard to endure such torture. The sovereign's words were long-winded, but his attacks were swift and decisive. Before Lu Chaoga had any time to prepare, he had already stabbed him with the knife. It was still Lu Chaoga's right hand and the hole in the center of her right hand. The barbs on the dagger once again tore through the torn flesh. Because of the brutal insertion of the dagger, more blood and flesh oozed out from the side of the blade. Lu Chaoga fainted from the pain. We often talk about such a phrase, heart-wrenching. When a loved one died, it was heart-wrenching. When a cat and a dog at home died, it was heart-wrenching. When a boyfriend broke up, it was heart-wrenching. When a boyfriend broke up, it was heart-wrenching. When the fried chestnuts at Wang Mozi's house were sold out, it was heart-wrenching. When they didn't get a private room at Cash Locker KTV, it was even more heart-wrenching. How many people had experienced the real heart-wrenching pain? Tearing the heart and bursting the lungs, such a pain, perhaps ordinary people couldn't bear it at all, right? When Lu Chaoga woke up again, she felt someone touching her injured palm. It was still a heart-wrenching pain, but there was a comfortable coldness. Lu Chaoga opened his eyes and came face to face with a pair of worried and concerned eyes. Lu Chaoga was stunned for a moment and instantly understood. No sadness, no joy. She had long given up. Qiang Long Tan carefully applied layer after layer of brown ointment on the wound on Lu Chaoga's palm, then wrapped it tightly with white gauze, and skillfully tied a beautiful bow. Then he sighed softly and said, "How did they hurt you like this?" Lu Xiaoge retracted his hand and sat up with the support of one palm. It was a very ungraceful thing for her to lie in front of a strange man like this. She was a decent woman. "I've already helped you bandage it. I used the golden chrysalis skin nourishing powder personally made by Dr. King Qin Luo. The real ointment ground from the golden chrysalis powder won't even leave a scar after the wound is healed." Qiang Longtan pointed to the place between his eyebrows and said, "Do you still remember here? Were you 11 or 12 years old at that time? When I came back from work, you were watering the flowers on the balcony on the second floor. A flower pot suddenly fell down and slashed across the place between my eyebrows. There was a deep cut between my eyebrows. At that time, the flesh was turned inside out and blood flowed all over the ground. You were frightened and stood on the balcony looking at me like a fool. I still remember the look of panic in your eyes. I smiled and told you that I was fine. Then, your aunt took this bottle of golden chrysalis powder and bandaged it for me. She didn't even go to the hospital. Look, do I still have a scar here?" "No," Lu Xiaoge said. They had lived together for so many years, how could she not know if there was a scar between his eyebrows? "Yes, there's no scar left at all. It's really a magical treasure. This kind of thing is rare nowadays. I only have this little." Qiang Longtan put a small medicine bottle into his pocket and looked at Lu Xiaoge with a smile on his face and said, "From that moment on, I knew that you wanted to kill me. If you weren't too nervous that time, if you didn't throw the flower pot in a split second, maybe you would have avenged your parents." Lu Xiaoge was moved. This was the first time that Qiang Longtan told her about the death of her parents. "Their death was done by you, right?" Lu Xiaoge's voice trembled slightly and asked in a low voice. Qiang Longtan looked at Lu Xiaoge and said lightly, "Didn't you already know?" "I know." Lu Xiaoge nodded. "But I want to be sure, I want to hear the answer from your own mouth." Qiang Longtan sighed softly and said, "If it's possible, I really don't want the relationship between us father and daughter to deteriorate to such an extent. Since you want to be sure, then I'll confirm it for you. Yes, that matter was indeed done by me." Lu Xiaoge's tears flowed out of her eyes like rain. The truth was revealed. The truth of her parents' tragic death was finally revealed. After waiting for so many years, searching for so many years, suspecting for so many years, she finally got the answer to her question. Death meant never seeing each other again. Her painstaking search couldn't save her parents. What she asked for was her own peace of mind. Her parents died tragically, and she didn't even know who the murderer was, so what right did she have to be a daughter? Qiang Longtan personally admitted that he killed her parents, which was equivalent to putting an end to the biggest worry in Lu Xiaoge's heart. The dead can't come back to life. Qiang Longtan patted Lu Xiaoge's shoulder and comforted her. "I'm also very sad that something like this happened. I often think, was it wrong of me to do that? Was it too impulsive? If Mingta didn't die, if both of them were still alive? Wouldn't I have gained a close friend by my side? Wouldn't the Longtu group have gained an outstanding partner?" For a long time after Mingtu's death, I was in a dilemma. It wasn't until the real Rubik's Cube appeared that this dilemma ended. At that time, I suddenly understood something. Lu Mingtu deserves to die, they all deserve to die. I'm their friend, I'm their partner. I'm the closest person to them. Without me, what are they? All these years, how much time and effort have I invested in them? How much money and resources have I invested? They've obviously conquered the technical barrier of the Rubik's Cube, they clearly have a mature product, but they actually hid it and didn't tell me anything? Lu Xiaoge, tell me, isn't this kind of person hateful? Doesn't this kind of partner deserve to die? If it were you, what would you do? I really regret it. Why did I let them die in such a beautiful country? They should die in the cold barren mountains, die in the deserted desert, die in the stomachs of wild dogs and vultures. The kindness on Qiang Longtan's face disappeared, replaced by a deep-seated hatred and a craziness that was about to erupt like a volcano. What have we done all these years? We've followed the wrong direction they've pointed us in, over and over again, wrong again and again. I've wasted a total of 20 years. 20 years. Lu Chaoga, if I had gotten my hands on the mature Rubik's Cube 20 years ago, if I had developed the Rubik's Cube 20 years ago, do you know what would have happened? Qiang Long Tan's eyes were burning, his face full of longing as he said, the Longtu Group would have become the greatest energy technology company of this era, second to none. Qiang Long Tan would have become the greatest entrepreneur of this era, second to none. What internet legend? What real estate tycoon? Can these be compared to the inexhaustible energy industry? Qiang Long Tan reached out and hooked Lu Chaoga's neck, roaring like a madman. Lu Chaoga, can you imagine? If I had the Rubik's Cube 20 years ago, what would I have achieved now? The whole world would have to shout my name, all the influential people would have to look up to my existence. Yes, I'm the king of this world. The one and only king. Lu Chaoga, everything was ruined by your father. Tell me, don't they deserve to die? Chapter 463. Every bad guy had a unique talent. Some were ruthless, some were thick-skinned, and some were ruthless. Every one of them had something special about them. Qiang Long Tan was a master. He was not only ruthless, but also thick-skinned and ruthless. He hired assassins and let his friends and business partners die tragically in a foreign land. Years later, he accused them of keeping secrets from him, and said that they deserved to die. Such a person could be called the worst kind of bad guy, right? Lu Chaoga was choked by Qiang Long Tan. She couldn't refute his accusation. She also wouldn't refute, because in her eyes, Qiang Long Tan was a patient, a madman. Killing his own friend because of benefits, and then accusing his friend of being disloyal to him after his friend's death. Only he could do such a thing, right? Lu Mingtu, that bastard, he wasted my precious time. He held me back for 20 years. He held me back for 20 years. Lu Mingtu looked at Lu Chaoga with a ferocious expression, and asked fiercely, tell me, do you think he should die? So what if it's for military use? So what if it's for civilian use? Because he, a nerd, doesn't like war, he won't allow his research results to be used for military use? Stupid. Extremely stupid, didn't he know? Only military use can maximize the benefits. If I didn't seize such a good opportunity, I would regret it for the rest of my life, so I killed him. I had to kill him. If I didn't kill him, the Rubik's Cube would never be created, because he was the biggest obstacle in the research room, a traitor to our group. Still want to split? Want to split Longtu in two? That nerd, isn't he too naive? Longtu is my life's work, my life's hope. How could I allow such a thing to happen? Understood. Understood everything. Lu Chaoga's tears flowed faster and faster, and her heart was aching more and more. She had never experienced it, and no one had ever told her about it. Her parents died in the hands of two nameless robbers. That's what everyone said. As if this was the truth of her parents' death. But she knew that wasn't the case. There must be other secrets. However, what exactly happened? Why were her parents killed? Now, she finally knew the cause and effect of the whole thing. This kind of feeling was very joyful, but also more sorrowful. She was happy that she could finally enter her parents' lives and understand some of the stories that happened when they were alive. The sad thing was, it was as if they had come back to life in their own memories and died all over again. He wanted her to suffer the pain of losing a loved one again. Cardiac-shattering roar. Lu Chaoga's father, Lu Mingtu, was a typical technical talent. His greatest achievement in life was opening Pandora's box with his own hands. At that time, the box was only half open, but his good friend and business partner, Qiang Long Tan, couldn't wait to cash in on the huge profits. He wanted to turn the Rubik's Cube into a scythe of death that harvested flesh and blood and a criminal helper that bombed civilians. Lu Mingtu didn't want his hands to be stained with blood. He was more inclined to commercialize the Rubik's Cube technology, bringing a better and more convenient life for people all over the world. The two of them had a conflict over the future development of the company, and the confrontation became more and more intense. The gap between the two friends grew deeper and deeper. In the end, Lu Mingtu didn't want his brother to turn against him, so he took the initiative to compromise and proposed to split Longtu into two, one for civilian use and the other for military use. Qiang Long Tan thought that Lu Mingtu had evil intentions towards Longtu Group, so he asked Lu Mingtu to go on a vacation and relax. They would discuss the division of the company when he came back. Of course, Lu Mingtu and his wife would never be able to return from that country in this lifetime. This was the truth behind Qiang Long Tan's murder of Lu Mingtu. It turned out that many years ago, her father had done the same thing as her. The difference was that her father failed and paid with his life. She succeeded, but she also paid with her life. Qiang Long Tan stared at Lu Chaoga, whose face was full of tears, and said sarcastically, "What's even more ridiculous is that what Lu Mingtu insisted on preventing in the past was now accomplished by his own daughter. He didn't allow me to commercialize the Rubik's Cube technology, but he couldn't see his own daughter commercialize the Rubik's Cube with his own eyes. Lu Mingtu, if you still have a spirit after your death, shouldn't you open your eyes and take a look? Look at the surprise your good daughter has brought you. Do you regret it? Regret being an idiot and a jerk. All smart people know that the Rubik's Cube can only be used for military purposes to maximize the benefits, but you just don't allow it to appear? The Rubik's Cube technology was indeed commercialized for military use, but it wasn't because of Lu Chaoga's own intentions. A world-leading energy product like the Rubik's Cube had to be strictly controlled by the country. Originally, the country had proposed to buy or invest in it, but in the end, the old master of the Qin family stepped in and suppressed the matter. However, Old Master Qin also agreed to a condition of the country. The Rubik's Cube technology would become the most loyal and powerful backing of the armed country. After the establishment of Chaoyan technology, Lu Chaoga signed a cooperation contract with the military. The contents of the contract were confidential, but the Underground Research Institute of Chaoyan Technology did have a few more studios working hard in the direction of military development. Qiang Long Tan must have thrown a pawn into the Underground Research Institute of Chaoyan Technology, so it was understandable that he knew some of the situation. Old Jiang, a middle-aged man walked in and saw Qiang Long Tan holding Lu Chaoga's neck with all his might. He quickly ran over and pulled him away. "Old Jiang, don't be impulsive. We haven't gotten what we want yet. What if you strangle her to death? Wouldn't you have worked hard for nothing?" Under the man's dissuasion, Qiang Long Tan finally let go of Lu Chaoga's neck. Phew, Lu Chaoga's face was purple and red, and she gasped for breath. Just now, her consciousness had become blurred, but tears kept coming out of her eyes, as if she was very sad and sad. Qiang Long Tan's hand loosened, and the expression on his face changed. He returned to his usual appearance of a kind elder, took out a handkerchief from his suit pocket, and handed it over. He said, "I'm sorry, I was too impulsive. Wipe your tears, the past is the past. We still have to look forward." Lu Chaoga didn't take the handkerchief from Qiang Long Tan. She thought it was dirty. She wiped the corners of her eyes with her sleeve, and the tears naturally stopped. She didn't like to cry. She felt that crying represented vulnerability, compromise, and all the emotions she didn't want to show to others. Qiang Long Tan looked at Lu Chaoga and said with a smile, "I don't want to kill people either. I can't kill anymore. I killed your parents, killed your aunt. If I kill you too, wouldn't that be the extermination of your family? I don't believe in ghosts or gods, and I don't believe that bad people will go to hell after they die, but people should try their best to do good deeds. So, Chaoga, you're a smart girl. Don't make things difficult for me, okay?" Lu Chaoga smiled. She was really amused by Qiang Long Tan's words. How could a cruel, bloody, and demonic scumbag say that people should try their best to do good deeds in life? Where was the virtue he had accumulated, and where was the goodness he had done? Qiang Long Tan smiled as well. He looked at Lu Chaoga and said, "Don't you find your Uncle Jiang funny? I know what you want, said Lu Chaoga. But I can't give it to you. I won't give it to you. Knowing the truth, Lu Chaoga wanted nothing more than to eat his flesh and drink his blood. Of course she wouldn't give him the Rubik's Cube. That's too irrational. Qiang Long Tan shook his head and sighed. The middle-aged man who was standing next to them walked over and looked at Lu Chaoga. Miss, you can't be emotional. Isn't it too much of a pity to end your youth like this? Lu Chaoga looked at the middle-aged man and found him familiar. Jiang Fengxing. The middle-aged man smiled. You haven't seen me before. But you should know my daughter, Jiang Shangxin. Lu Chaoga nodded and said, I understand. I understand everything. Qiang Long Tan and Jiang Fengxing from the Jiang family appeared at the scene of her kidnapping. What else couldn't she understand? She knew that the Jiang family and the Jiang family were in cahoots, and now it seemed that the relationship between the two families was indeed unusual. It's good that you understand. I'm just afraid that you don't understand. Jiang Fengxing didn't try to hide it. You'd better listen to your Uncle Jiang. He's at his wit's end now, so he'll do anything. Driven to a dead end? Lu Chaoga looked at Qiang Long Tan. Why would he be desperate? The Jiang family was one of the 4 major families in Huacheng. Although his Longtu group had always been under pressure from Chaoyan technology, it still firmly occupied half of the energy industry in Huacheng. He had the support of a powerful family like the Jiang family, and his son, Jiang Zhulu, was about to marry Jiang Shangxin from the Jiang family. How could such a person be desperate? After you were kidnapped, Fang Yan went to Julio's wedding to ask for you. Qiang Long Tan smiled bitterly and said, he stabbed the Jiang father and son again and again, and even got hold of Lu Tong's weakness to force him to betray us. Lu Tong betrayed them? Lu Chaoga was shocked. She had lived in the Jiang family for many years, and she was all too clear about Lu Tong's position in the hearts of the Jiang father and son. Lu Tong was a special person in the Jiang family. If he jumped out and stabbed the Jiang father and son, they could only suffer in silence, because Lu Tong had too many weaknesses that could be used against them. If he forced them too much, Lu Tong could completely betray them in front of everyone. Unless they had a way to get rid of him. However, if that person fell into the hands of Fang Yan, he would definitely not give them a chance to do it, right? Because what he was most afraid of now was someone leaving him. Just like his father did. Fang Yan was really becoming more and more mature, and a trustworthy man. Chapter 464. Today was supposed to be the day of Zhu Lu and Shangxin's wedding, but Fang Yan made a scene at the wedding venue. He insisted that we were the ones who kidnapped you, and Lu Tong came out to add insult to injury. I have to say, it was a vicious move. Qiang Long Tan patted his chest and said, a sword pierced through my heart. The wedding was ruined, the guests left, the Jiang family's reputation was ruined, and we became the laughingstock of the world. We were like stray dogs. I know you are interested in what happened after that, so I told you about it to make you happy. I can't help but admit that the man you've chosen is indeed better than Zhu Lu. Zhu Lu's life was too comfortable all these years, and I was there to protect him. He was not mature enough, and his methods were not vicious enough. It's okay, he is still a young man, and he still has a lot of room to grow. After experiencing this, I'm sure he'll comprehend some things. The Jiang family is finished, and so are we. Everyone says that a cornered dog will do something desperate, but what can a person do when they are desperate? I don't know either. I really don't know. Anyway, your father wanted to split up Longtu with me, so I got someone to kill him. Now that your man, Fang Yan, has taken everything away from us, only the Rubik's Cube can save me, our reputation, and our reputation. Let us become a powerful force in Huacheng again, and let those who belittle and laugh at us look up to us again. Chaoga, give me a hand, and give me the Rubik's Cube. With the Rubik's Cube, Uncle will be able to regroup and achieve great things. When that time comes, you will be proud of me. I want you to die immediately. Lu Chaoga stared at Qiang Longtan and said. She had never hated someone so much, and she had never wanted someone to die so much. He had done so many evil things and killed his closest family member, but he spoke to her in such a careless tone, asking for something that didn't belong to him in the first place. He didn't care about his past at all. He had only killed one person, and he could kill again. He had only done some shameful things, and he could do it again. But what could he do? He was more venomous than a poisonous snake and more vicious than a ferocious tiger. It was uglier than the ugliest creature in the world. Listening to Lu Chaoga's hatred and curses, Qiang Longtan laughed out loud. Qiang Longtan turned around, looked at Jiang Fengxing and said, Fengxing, these young people are braver than us. The older we get, the less courage we have. The more you live, the more regressive you become. That's because we care about too many things. Jiang Fengxing took out a cigarette from his pocket and put it in his mouth. If you care about too many things, you won't be willing to die. Since we don't dare to die, then let others die, Qiang Longtan said with a smile. Why don't I get my little friend to bring them here? It's all up to you. Jiang Fengxing smiled and nodded. He clapped his hands, and the Lord God walked over with a woman upside down. He held the woman's arm in one hand and her ankle in the other. She did not look gentle at all. Bam! The Lord God threw the woman on the floor, then walked in front of Lu Chaoga, looked at her with a silly smile, and kindly reminded her, give them the Rubik's Cube. Otherwise, they'll really kill you. I'm also a woman, so I can understand the difficulties of being a woman very well. Woman? Lu Chaoga looked at the Lord God with a confused look. He had a rough face, a thick beard, and a sturdy body that looked mighty and domineering. When he moved, he looked like a small mountain. The Lord God is a woman? Lu Chaoga finally understood why the Lord God said that he didn't like women several times when he was chatting with her. She finally understood why a kidnapper would spout so much nonsense out of the blue. Women. The Lord God patted Lu Chaoga's face and said, take care of yourself. Twisting his chubby butt, he elegantly walked to Jiang Fengxing and stood still beside Jiang Fengxing. Jiang Fengxing put his arm around the Lord God's shoulder. The Lord God very gently took out a lighter from his pocket and helped Jiang Fengxing light the cigarette, then said in a sweet voice, you're allowed to smoke only this one. Otherwise, you're not allowed to kiss me. Jiang Fengxing laughed and said, fine. I'll listen to you and only smoke this one. As he spoke, he hugged the Lord God tighter in his arms. The Lord God giggled and rubbed his sturdy body against Jiang Fengxing's chest. The two looked at each other in the eyes. Lu Chaoga turned her face away, not daring to look again. These kidnappers didn't look like kidnappers at all. After such a fall, the woman on the ground slowly woke up. And Jing, the assistant who was kidnapped with Lu Chaoga. She saw Lu Chaoga sitting on the iron bed and hurriedly shouted, boss. She rushed in the direction of Lu Chaoga, but was kicked out by Qiang Longtan. And Jing's body retreated and then heavily hit the iron table in the middle of the room. Qiang Longtan slowly walked over. When Jing was about to get up, he grabbed her hair and pressed her body against the table again. Qiang Longtan's body was on top of Jing's body. He looked at Jing's pretty face at close range and asked with a smile, are you afraid? Let me go. Jing struggled desperately. But how could her strength be greater than Qiang Longtan's? No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't lift Qiang Longtan's body from her chest. Your life is not in my hands, but in Lu Chaoga's hands. Beg her. As long as you are willing to beg her, she will plead for you. I will let you go. You won't die. Qiang Longtan tightened his grip on Jing's hair as he roared, beg her, quickly beg her. Don't even think about it. Jing's hair was pulled off, but she still gritted her teeth and persisted. Very good. You're as stubborn as your boss, Qiang Longtan said with a smile. He took out a knife with his right hand and cut off the hair in his hand. Swish. 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 His right hand brandished the knife randomly, and Enjing's long hair quickly turned into a hedgehog's head. It was like cutting chives with a kitchen knife. It was messy and messy. Enjing screamed in shock, but she couldn't escape Qiang Longtan's grasp. Lu Chaoga was just about to jump off the bed to help Enjing, but before she could do so, bang! A dagger was stabbed into the bedding between her legs. It was less than a centimeter away, and the dagger could have pierced into her calf bone. The chief god glanced at Lu Chaoga and said in her sweet voice, "Don't move. Don't move. I can't guarantee that I'll stab so accurately every time." Lu Chaoga panted heavily as she sat motionlessly on the spot. Qiang Longtan pressed down on Enjing's head and raised the dagger to stab down. He said, "There's an art in the western regions called scalp painting. I've admired it for a long time, but I've never had the chance to see it. An old friend told me that he saw with his own eyes a foreign monk painting a blood-bathed peony on his scalp. Today, I'll paint a painting on your scalp. What do you think I should paint?" Enjing couldn't answer, and her cries became even more tragic. Painting on the scalp? Just the thought of it made one's hair stand on end. "Stop!" Lu Chaoga shouted. The tip of the dagger in Qiang Longtan's hand had already sliced through Enjing's scalp. Blood dripped down the dagger, making for a shocking sight. The dagger in his hand stopped as he looked at Lu Chaoga and asked, "I knew you were a good child. You're cruel to yourself, but very kind to others. Why? Did you agree to give me the Rubik's Cube? Didn't you want to try painting on your scalp?" Lu Chaoga looked at Qiang Longtan and said, "Paint on my head. It's more convenient if I don't move." Qiang Longtan hated the words "unafraid of death." However, he had to admit that such people really existed. For example, Lu Chaoga in front of him. Qiang Longtan rejected Lu Chaoga's request and said with a smile, "Chaoga, I'm not joking with you." "I'll really kill her." "I know you're not joking," Lu Chaoga said, "you'll definitely kill us. Whether I say it or not, you won't let us go back alive. The moment you appeared in front of me with your true faces, I knew we wouldn't be able to live." Lu Chaoga was a smart person. Smart people tend to have more worries than ordinary people. For example, the moment she saw Qiang Longtan, she knew that she wouldn't be able to leave this place alive. Qiang Longtan was a hypocrite, and a hypocrite cherished his reputation the most. The fact that he appeared in front of Lu Chaoga without any disguise meant that he already had the intention to kill her. Qiang Longtan smiled bitterly and said, "You really know me well." "That's right, this is indeed my style of doing things. We didn't wear masks because we didn't feel the need to hide anymore. Before you leave, there are a lot of things I need to clarify with you. You're a good girl, and I don't want you to leave with grief and regret. I know you're not afraid of death, and I know your followers are very brave, but, Chaoga, there are many kinds of death. There's also another kind, which is living a life worse than death. What kind of pain was living a life that was more difficult than death?" The knife in Jiang Longtan's hand was slicing at Enjing's scalp, preparing to complete the work in his heart. He said, "Look, painting on a scalp. This feeling is worse than death. The painting is done, and the person is still alive. The blood is the most natural paint. Lu Chaoga, have you ever seen a painting like this?" "Bastard," Lu Chaoga cursed through gritted teeth. When a person was this shameless, there was nothing anyone could do about it. Before, Qiang Longtan had to pretend to be a good person and maintain his great image, so he had to suppress the evil in his heart. Now, he could finally display his talent for evil without any scruples. Chapter 465. When Qiang Longtan was focused on completing his masterpiece, Feng Xing also patted the Lord God's bearded face and said, "Old Jiang is busy, we can't be idle. Go, bring those two guys over. Since Miss Lu likes acting so much, let's also add some fun to her." The Lord God laughed and said, "That will be lively." He turned around and quickly returned with two men in black who were tied up tightly. He threw the two men in black on the ground, letting them struggle and twist. The rope was made of high-tech fiber. The more intense the resistance, the tighter the binding. These were Lu Chaoga's driver Jingxiang and bodyguard Bookworm, both of whom were also kidnapped with Lu Chaoga. The driver Jingxiang was still trying, and Bookworm stopped moving after a little testing. Before having the confidence to break out in one fell swoop, try not to do anything suspicious. If the opponent is angered, it is likely to bring danger to your own life. The Lord God stepped on the driver Jingxiang's back with one foot and asked with a smile, "What? Are you afraid of death? Do you want to live?" The driver did not respond and struggled even more fiercely. The Lord God looked at Lu Chaoga and said with a smile, "You see, he wants to live, but in the end, he will die because of you." The Lord God patted Jingxiang's head that was desperately trying to raise and sighed. "Who told you to be a nobody? The fate of a nobody is just a way to be cannon fodder. It has been like this since ancient times." The Lord God's knees bent slightly and the sharp blade in his hand stabbed down. Screech, the sound of the sharp blade cutting through flesh was heard. The dagger with 21 barbs stabbed into the driver Jingxiang's back. Jingxiang's raised head paused in midair for 2 seconds and then fell down heavily. His body twitched violently on the floor, and his mouth vomited large mouthfuls of bright red blood. Screech! The Lord God pulled out the dagger from Jingxiang's body without hesitation. The barb brought out pieces of meat and a pool of blood. The Lord stretched out his finger and gently scraped a drop of blood on the blade. He put it in his mouth and sucked it. He turned to look at Lu Chaoga and said, "Look, you killed him. No matter what, this is a human life." Jingxiang's back was bleeding, and Lu Chaoga's heart was bleeding. She had experienced such a scene countless times, and every time she experienced it, she would feel a deep sorrow that was hard to suppress. Humans were not animals, so why did they have to kill each other? That taciturn but loyal driver, what crime did he commit? For the sake of profit, they could casually take away other people's lives. "You will get what you deserve," Lu Chaoga said through gritted teeth. She bit her tongue, and her mouth was filled with the sweet taste of blood. She had purposely bitten her tongue. That was the only way she could remain rational and clear-headed. "You will all die a horrible death. That's a matter for the future." The Lord God said with a smile, "I said I like to kill. But you didn't believe me. Look, my interest is now completely aroused by you. What game is more addictive than this?" The Lord God walked up to the bookworm and stepped on the Lord God's chest with one foot like before. He said, "I just pierced his heart from the back. This time, I will stab you through the heart from the front. While you look at me, let me stab you through the heart. At that time, you are not completely dead, and your brain can still stay awake. I will pull out the knife when you look at me, and then, you can hear the sound of rustling flesh and the knife rubbing against each other. Have you used a knife to cut a piece of paper? Have you used a knife to cut tofu? Yes, that's the sound. These are all my leftovers." The Lord God said. "Do you have any new tricks?" The Lord God looked at the bookworm's calm eyes, smiled and nodded, and said, "I almost forgot. You are different from them. You used to be brilliant, the king of the mercenary world. The king of soldiers returned and became a dog of the Qin family, but I still respect you. Tell me, how do you want to die?" The bookworm thought about it seriously and said, "When I was in North Africa, I often played a scarecrow game with people. You would stab people with knives, and the one who could stab the most and still survive was the winner. The person with the most knives was the final winner, the scarecrow. When I played before, I was the winner every time. My highest record was 412 knives. However, I used to be the stabber, and never had the chance to become a scarecrow. Why don't you help me today?" The Lord God's face was full of excitement, and his eyes glowed with excitement. He liked to kill people, and he liked to kill different people, and he liked to kill different people. He had heard of this scarecrow game, but he had never played it. This was not only a novel way of killing, but it also challenged the psychological quality and knife technique of the stabber. Stabbing a knife into a person's body over and over again and not killing them immediately, Just thinking about it made one's blood boil. If the stabber's psychological quality was not up to standard, or the knife technique was not agile and delicate enough, it was easy to stab people to death. Moreover, the bookworm said that his highest record was 412 knives. How many knives could he stab? Could he break the bookworm's record? Those who were skilled were bold. As a swordsman, he was itching to compete with his opponent. The Lord God was hesitating whether to agree to the bookworm's request for death, but Feng Xing stopped him from behind and said, "Don't be bewitched by him. He just wants to buy some time for Lu Chaoga with his own death." Stabbing a person hundreds of knives and not killing them immediately is a contradiction in itself. I'm afraid it will take a lot of time, right? By time? The Lord God sneered and said, "What can they do? Even if they are given more time, what can they do? Do they still think that someone will come to save them?" The Lord God looked at Lu Xiaoga with a face full of sarcasm and said, "Miss Lu, I advise you to give up such unrealistic ideas, because it will only bring you despair. You must not know where we are now. We are on the sea, above a sea that no one knows. Even if your little lover turns watching upside down, he can't find your whereabouts, nor can he find this place. Even we don't know where this is, how could he know? On the sea? They were kidnapped on the sea." Lu Chaoga was completely desperate. The sky was blue, the sea was vast. How vast was the sea? It was so big that people lost their direction. What was worse, if they were on land, people would leave clues as long as they ate, drank, and defecated. If Fang Yan was smart and attentive, he might have a way to find out where they were hiding. However, if they were on the sea, it would really be a classic line in a TV series. You can scream, it's useless even if you break your throat. There is no chance of survival. After understanding this problem, Lu Chaoga was even less likely to hand over the Rubik's Cube. They were all going to die anyway, it was just a matter of dying sooner or later. Driver Zheng Xiang was going to die, Bookworm was going to die. And Jing was also going to die. It would be her turn in the end. They were making her suffer mental torture now, and after they killed all the people around her, they would make her suffer mental and physical torture. Without getting the Rubik's Cube, they would not give up. Zheng Xiang was bleeding, and Jing was screaming. Bookworm's eyes were blood red as he stared at the Lord God and roared, "What? You don't dare? 412 stabs. Are you afraid that you can't surpass me? Are you afraid that you can't break my record? Come on, I'll keep track of every stab you make. I will grit my teeth and hold on until you stab 413. The Lord God was getting more and more tempted. He turned to look at Jiang Fengxing and said, "Since Fang Yan can't find us, it proves that we have enough time. Don't you want to see my knife skills? I promise I won't let you down. If you have time, just let me be willful for once, okay?" Jiang Fengxing smiled at Qiang Longtan. Qiang Longtan said, "Let's get down to business. We can't give our opponent any chances." Qiang Longtan was such a cautious man. Even if he had 100% control over the situation, he still didn't want to make the slightest mistake. It was shameful to fail in such a simple task. "What a shame," the Lord God licked his lips and looked at Bookworm. "Seems like I can't let you have your way, coward." Bookworm spat in disdain. "Sissy," the Lord God's eyes became even redder as he spoke. "I definitely don't care if you call me a sissy, because I really want to be a woman. Isn't it great to be a woman? How can a man be tired?" He slightly bent his knees, raised the dagger with both hands and looked at Bookworm. "However, I've decided to give you a new way to die. I'll make you watch as I cut open your chest and pull out your first organ for you to see. You've never seen this before, have you?" After saying that, the Lord God raised the dagger and stabbed it down towards Bookworm's chest. Shoo! A very faint sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. The dagger in the Lord God's hand changed from a stab to a slash, cutting the object flying towards him in half. Pow! The two halves of the object fell at the same time. It turned out to be a small red snake that had been cut in half. Red snake blood flowed and spread on the ground. The small and ugly snake head was still hissing and chirping. The door to the room was pushed open from the outside as a short, skinny man walked in with an expressionless face. Behind him stood a young man in a black robe. The man glanced at the tragic scene in the room. His expression became cold as he spoke. All of you must die. Chapter 466. The red heart snake's tail was still wriggling, slapping the cabin board. Other than that, there was no other sound. Fong Yan's sudden appearance made the bustling room suddenly quiet down, so quiet that a pin drop could be heard. Why did Fong Yan come? Fong Yan really came? And Jing's head was dripping with blood, but she stopped screaming. Bookworm's eyes turned cold, and he began to look for an opportunity to escape. Lu Chaoga's expression was ecstatic. This joy was undisguised, and her heart was filled with happiness. She had prepared herself for the worst, when she had already believed that she would die, but Fong Yan came from the sky. What kind of man could be called a flirty man? Only a man who could make people feel warm and excited could be called a flirty man. What kind of man could be called a Prince Charming? Only a man who came from the sky like a god, an omnipotent man, could be called a Prince Charming. In Lu Chaoga's mind, Fong Yan was the representative of flirty man and Prince Charming. He represented two terms at once. However, in the eyes of Qiang Longtan and Jiang Fengxing, Fong Yan's appearance was an accident, a disaster. Qiang Longtan's face was full of disbelief. He stared at Fong Yan and asked, "Impossible. How did you get here? How did you find this place?" For this kidnapping, he and Jiang Fengxing had put in a lot of effort. They deliberated and arranged it carefully, sending the Mercedes-Benz into the truck, sending the truck into the container, and then sending the container to the freighter. Now, the freighter was sailing on the distant sea, heading towards the Pacific Ocean. They tried to leave no traces. They thought that Fong Yan would not be able to find Lu Chaoga's whereabouts no matter how hard he tried. But, what were the two lumps standing at the door? Surprised? Fong Yan stared coldly at Qiang Longtan, as if looking at a dead man. "Why do I not feel surprised to see you?" "I don't feel surprised at all, but you are too disgusting." "You knew it was me?" Qiang Longtan's mind spun rapidly. The moment Fong Yan appeared, he had already thought of the cause and effect of the matter and various possibilities. Is there even a need to guess? Although you have repeatedly said in the media that you are willing to deepen the cooperation with Chao Yan, but everyone knows that you are greedy for the Rubik's Cube. Chao Yan and Lu Chaoga have been in constant trouble for the past few years, and the number of engineers who died in Chao Yan's underground research facility is uncountable. If it weren't for the support of the Qin family, the research facility would have fallen into a difficult situation where there were no engineers available. I don't want to believe that the Jiang family played a part in this. Qiang Longtan stopped what he was doing. He was still not good at being an artist. His hands were covered in blood, and even the blade of the knife was dripping with blood. Everyone is doing it. If our Jiang family doesn't do it, wouldn't we be too different? Qiang Longtan said with a smile. He released the silence. He knew that he no longer had a chance to kill Enjing. Besides, whether Enjing died or not, he really didn't care at all. Enjing got up from the table and ran to Lu Chaoga's side. Lu Chaoga immediately helped her bandage. Snake Lord took out a gray porcelain bottle from his pocket and threw it over. After Lu Chaoga caught the bottle, she uncorked it and poured the entire bottle of powder onto Enjing's head. After quickly bandaging Enjing, Lu Chaoga rushed to Jingxiang's side and flipped his body over. Lu Chaoga reached out and found that Jingxiang's heart had stopped beating and his breathing had stopped. His body was cold, and it seemed that he had been dead for some time. His eyes were wide open, and he died with a grievance. Lu Chaoga closed his eyes and took off her suit jacket to cover his face. "You had long guessed that it was me, so you caused a scene at the wedding and forced the Jiang father and son into a desperate situation. I had no choice but to take the risk and pin all my hopes on Lu Chaoga's Rubik's Cube. If it weren't for the Jiang family's passive position after the wedding incident, I wouldn't have been in a hurry to get a result. I would have locked them up for 3 to 5 months, or even a year and a half. My greatest strength is patience, and I was confident that I would eventually defeat and convince them. If I hadn't come, you would never have found this place. So, this was also part of your plan. You used the trick of chasing the tiger down the mountain to find Lu Chaoga's whereabouts from me. Qiang Long Tan looked at Fang Yen with a puzzled look and said, "What I don't understand is, how did you find this place?" This was an uninhabited sea. Without someone to navigate and guide them, it would have been impossible for them to reach this place. How did Fang Yen do it? Was there a traitor by his side? Qiang Long Tan inadvertently glanced at Jiang Fengxing and ruled out this possibility. If the plan to kidnap Lu Chaoga was made by him, then the real executor was Jiang Fengxing. Jiang Fengxing was more invested in this than himself, and he had a lot of benefits on Lu Chaoga. What reason did he have to betray him? Betray the plan to kidnap the goddess? After Qiang Long Tan was betrayed by Lu Tong once, it was very difficult for him to trust anyone again, including his current partner. Qiang Long Tan, I admit that you are a very smart person, and a natural conspirator. No one is more vicious than you, and no one is more vicious than you. You didn't trust Lu Tong for a long time, so you arranged for him to be by your son Jiang Zhuliu's side. You single-handedly planned the kidnapping of Lu Chaoga, but I'm afraid even your own son didn't know about it, right? Qiang Long Tan, in this world, having no one to trust, is it very sad? Lu Tong knows too many secrets. If you want to have a good ending, it's best for you to escape in time. I sent him to Jiang Zhuliu's side to give him a way out. How can you say that I don't trust him? No matter what reason he has, he stood on your side and stabbed me. That's not just because he doesn't trust me. As for Jiang Zhuliu, he's still a young man. He always pretends to be mature, but deep down, he's still a kid who hasn't grown up. Why would you let a kid know so many dirty things? Qiang Long Tan still didn't give up. He kept staring at Fang Yen and asked, "You still haven't told me, how did you find this place? Because I planted a tracking device on you." Fang Yen said sarcastically, "As long as you're human, there will be traces of your existence." That's impossible. Qiang Long Tan immediately refuted. Before I boarded the ship, I used a sophisticated device to check my body. I don't have any suspicious objects on me, we're confident about that. Who said the device can definitely detect you? Fang Yen sneered. The Snake Lord whistled. A hair-thin black snake crawled out from Qiang Long Tan's hair. It coiled up in the middle of his hair, blending in with his hair. It was hard to distinguish with the naked eye. If it didn't pop out to look around, you'd only see it as a slightly thicker strand of hair. Fang Yen was worried about Lu Chaoga's kidnapping. On one hand, he sent people to ask around for Lu Chaoga's whereabouts. On the other hand, he and Qining and the others used the elimination method to analyze who was the most likely suspect. Fang Yen used one night to look through all the information on the crises that Chao Yen and Lu Chaoga had encountered in the past 3 years. Finally, he locked onto the Jiang father and son. At this time in Huacheng, there was a huge conflict of interest. Furthermore, there were only a few people who had the ability to kidnap Lu Chaoga without anyone knowing. The Jiang father and son were the biggest suspects. Therefore, Fang Yen caused a ruckus at Jiang Zhuliu's wedding, forcing the Jiang father and son into a dead end. Then, he formed an alliance with Lu Tong, giving the Jiang father and son the deepest and most painful stab. When Fang Yen left with Lu Shu and Lan Shanggu, it was the same as taking away all the Jiang family's energy and spirit. His skeleton was also shattered with a single slap. Qiang Long Tan was eager for revenge, so he could only seek revenge from Lu Chaoga, who was already held hostage by him. At the wedding venue, when Jiang Longtan jumped down from the stage and wanted Fang Yen to punch and kick him a few times, the two of them were very close to each other, giving Fang Yen an opportunity. He flicked the blind black dragon, who could communicate with the female snake through ventriloquism, into Qiang Longtan's hair. Any tracking device could be detected by more advanced detection devices. However, if he used the blind black dragon, this possibility would not exist. The blind black dragon was a fleshly animal. It didn't have any metal or chips. Moreover, the blind black dragon communicated with the female snake through ventriloquism. As long as its abdomen wriggled, it would produce a special wave. When the female snake received the wave signal, it would follow. After Fang Yen placed the blind black dragon on Qiang Long Tan, he ordered Snake Lord to monitor him closely. Sure enough, Qiang Long Tan didn't make them wait for too long. When the whole world thought he would close his door to heal, he slipped out of the house in the middle of the night in disguise. When he arrived at the port and was about to board the ship, Fang Yen had a rough idea of where Lu Chaoga was going. However, the sea was vast. It was easier said than done to find a person or a ship on the surface of the sea. If they were too close, they would be easily discovered. If they were too far away, they would easily lose track of them. Qiang Long Tan was too cunning. They had to spend a lot of effort to follow behind him without him noticing. However, it would still take a lot of time to find the cargo ship. Fang Yen and the Snake Lord took the boat and circled the sea for a long time before they finally confirmed their target. Qiang Long Tan couldn't see the black snake above his head, but he noticed something strange from the frightened eyes of others. He held the dagger and swung it above his head. Hiss! The blind black dragon didn't have eyes, but it was the most agile snake species. When it sensed danger, it immediately took the initiative to attack its prey. Ah! Qiang Long Tan screamed. The back of his hand was bitten by the blind black dragon. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.